It's time for Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. For the next 3 hours, it's high school basketball from across the Mountain State. Live from Marshall University, here's your host, Ryan Epling.
Episode 1 of Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you here at Marshall University in the studios now. We've moved downstairs. We're moving on up, though.
Yeah, moving on up. It's hard to believe where we've gone from just, a year ago.
Right.
We were sitting behind the desk saying, what are we going to call this show? And now here we are in this beautiful set here on the campus of Marshall University and ready for another great season of Basketball Friday Night.
And definitely going to be a lot of fun this year. Again, if you're not familiar with the show, let's tell you about Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. We're with you every Friday night during the basketball season from 9 to midnight. You can call us 1-855-345-4709. Again, that number is 855-345-4709. You can always reach the show by tweeting us at hoops_roundup. And you can visit the website, basketballnight.com. That has all your information on how you can communicate with us here on the show. Our goal through this show is to bring you the scores every Friday night throughout the state of West Virginia, boys and girls high school basketball. It's something that is a successfully done venture in football, and we wanted to do it with basketball. We started this last year, and we will be running, I believe, 15 shows is what it turns out to be. So 45 hours of content of high school basketball that will come to you through this website. And, of course, we'll be with you all season long as well throughout the week on our Twitter account, trying to get the scores to you as well. So, again, the big thing we focus on is getting you the scores. We try to talk with coaches, players, media, fans, anybody that wants to call in, talk about a game that they were able to attend on a Friday night. We know not every team plays every Friday night. We understand that. We'll try to give you some background of the teams that don't play on Friday night throughout the week in terms of what they've been doing. But, again, the scoreboard is what this show thrives on. But, James, here we are, second week of December, first full week of boys basketball. Girls is in its second week in West Virginia. Seems like we just stopped. It's been 9 months since the Charleston Civic Center Coliseum was rocking for 3 of the better championship games on the boys' side and 3 girls basketball championship games as well.
Yeah, it was like it was yesterday. We kicked back, and then we were saying at the same time it was almost football season. Football season's gone. It's all about now. It's just about high school basketball. And I was talking with a couple guys today, and he was actually up in the Charleston Civic Center. The big cheerleading competition's going on, and he says, this reminds me of March. He said, this is time for March. And it's hard to believe it's time for March Madness to start thinking about that because we're working into the month of December. Boys basketball getting started, girls basketball 2 weeks in. And we'll start conference play after the turn of the new year. And it's hard to believe. Then it starts a downhill quickly, a roll into sectionals, regionals, and then we're back in Charleston for a tournament again. It's an exciting time of this season, but my goodness, it's crazy to see 90-some games going on tonight between boys and girls. We'll get all those scores over to you in just a few.
It's amazing, too, when you think about it because, last year, everything that happened, there were the weather was a big factor throughout the state of West Virginia. A lot of games were canceled. That seemed to happen on a couple of Friday nights where there would be only 5 games to the entire state.
We had 5 games with the ice storm night and then the trip. I was actually out of the studio. It was Valentine's weekend. We had another, I think it was flood. We had the water issue last year, don't forget, in Charleston. It was a crazy year, but we made it through, and it was definitely without all of the assistance from everybody of our listening base that poured in all of their support, all of their information, and hats off to the crew of Basketball Friday Night, revamping the website, all of the stuff that we are offering now. We truly want to make this the one-stop shop for everything high school basketball in the Mountain State, and I honestly believe after everything I've been involved with this week of working with the website, getting it ready to go, it's going to be tough to beat.
There are usually going to be 3 of us who will be here. Coach Rick Marone of the Tulsa Lady Rebels is our 3rd person who will be with us throughout most of the season, but he had a little thing called a basketball game. He scheduled a game on Friday night.
Yeah, how dare him?
He should know better than that, right?
Yeah, it's basketball night season, not basketball season.
Right.
Now we have to let Mironoff once. Now, he did this to us last year, and I'm sure we'll hear from him in a little while. Now, we'll find out exactly how his game went when we hear from him. He'll either be hoarse or he'll be really hyper.
Right.
If he's hoarse, it didn't go too well. He may have practiced. We may not even talk to him until the 11 o'clock hour. So, but, yeah, Marone will be with us on typically. But, opening the season, he always has that tournament that he plays in, takes his team into some great competition. But typically there'll be 3 of our bobbing heads up here bringing the West Virginia high school basketball scores, and of course we always love him because he has the Goodies Headache Powder scoreboard update to close out the show.
Yeah,
so
it's always a unique benefit to having Coach Marone for the show as well. So we look forward to hearing from him tonight, and of course he'll be with us through the rest of the season as well. And again, we cover the state of West Virginia from the Eastern Panhandle to the Northern Panhandle to Bluefield and Domingo Central and everywhere in between. That's our goal, and so. James, scoreboard is what drives this show. You ready for the first scoreboard of the 2014-2015 campaign?
Yeah, let's hit some scores from around the Mountain State. As for the first time this year, we will check with the scores from around West Virginia. We'll start on the boys' side. Logan and Liberty Raleigh. That game is just at the end of the third quarter. 50-44, Logan on top. Our first final that we will report, Independence, a winner over Greenbrier West, 83-69. It was Mingo Central getting past Herbert Hoover, 65-58. Chapmanville, big-time winner over Tulsa, 79-36. It was Buffalo winners over St. Joe Central, 74-56. Riverside knocks off St. Albans, 67-42. Lincoln, a 12-point winner over Kaiser, 70-58. Let's check the girls' side. Earlier on this evening, it was Pocahontas County winners over James Monroe. Our first live score that tweeted from our Basketball Friday Night website, basketballnight.com, that was sent from. Moorfield leading East Hardy 27-16 at the half. Grafton over Clay Battelle 65-41. Clay County defeated Scott 68-46. And that's one other score. Hurricane with a win over Capital 63-49. Abby Watson fouls out of this ballgame with about 4 minutes left to go, but Hurricane able to hold on and pick up the win. That's the first check of your Basketball Friday Night scoreboard update.
Let's give our listeners a little bit of a background, too, on just go back to a year ago. Charleston Civic Center Coliseum had some outstanding games at the state tournament. I thought the boys' state tournament might have been about as good of a boys' state tournament as I can remember from the standpoint of competitive games all throughout in every round. We talked about last year, one of the big themes, could Washington go undefeated? They could not. They lost to Huntington in the semifinal. Could Robert C. Byrd go undefeated? They could not. They were beaten by Bluefield in the AA championship game. So on the boys' side, Huntington got the state championship, Bluefield state championship in AA, and the single A state champion was Wheeling Central. And then on the girls' side, AAA state championship game was an outstanding game. Morgantown beating Parkersburg South. The AA state championship game, or AA state championship last year, West Side getting the win in that game, and in the single A state championship, that went to Huntington St. Joe. Now, quite a few players throughout the state of West Virginia have already committed or signed with Division I programs. Last year, Michael Johnson at St. Joe signed with Notre Dame. She's getting some playing time for the Fighting Irish, who are ranked number 2 in the poll last week, but we're beaten at home by UConn, so they'll drop a little bit. But still, she's getting a little bit of playing time her freshman year there. That class from St. Joe pretty much all graduated with the exception of Michelle Johnson. We'll see where she ends up. But James, are a lot of talented players, both boys and girls, in the state of West Virginia this year.
And it's the thing is that it may be a small state, but there is tons of talent spread out all over the Mountain State. And just to take it kind of a trip down the road, 4 of those players in this local area that signed with Marshall Women's Basketball Program. You have this year's Thundering Herd basketball program, Brett Bowling. He's on the roster. has another member that transferred in that he can't go right now, but he sits out, he comes back and plays next year. And that's something that it's a testament to what this area, what this entire state has to offer for the Division I level. And that shows week in and week out what kind of programs there are scattered around the state, but as well as what kind of program or what kind of product you're going to see out on the court every night. It was almost funny. It was you get into the state championship and the games that we saw last year, and it wasn't like it was shocking of the games. It was games that we had been seeing for the last 3 months, and that was what made it so fun because the expectations were there, the excitement was there. And you take that semifinal matchup with Hurricane, 3 overtimes to get past Hedgesville, and then has to turn around, had Huntington on the ropes. And, one has to think back, how much did those overtimes take away from Hurricane having enough to finish off Huntington? But Huntington took down Goliath, knocks out Washington, and Washington was one of the most dynamic teams in the entire state of West Virginia. It was a team that played the game the way it's supposed to be played. 5 guys filling the lanes, running the fast break. It was a college game being played, and it was fun to watch. But at the same time, it really shows across this state, any given night, somebody can go down. And that night, it happened to be Huntington, and Huntington was able to finish things off.
Well, when you look at Huntington High, they have some good players back as well. They lost Nick Tubbs, but now you're talking about some really good basketball players who are still in that program.
You got Tavian Dunn-Martin.
Yeah,
that
he
kid
might be one of because there's so much talent. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up being player of the year. It's not a given before the season this year.
No, it's not like a few seasons past. And even we look back at this past football season, you had 2 or 3 players that you could really single out in each one of the classes, say, this is probably your player of the year. You don't have that this year. You've got some dynamic players that are scattered Eastern Panhandle all the way to the Coalfields, that this guy may be one of those guys, but Tavian Dunn-Martin, this kid as a junior this season, he was a superb sophomore. Dickie V would have loved this kid. He's a diaper dandy that we would call him, but absolutely, he can handle the basketball. Some of the passes he makes is just phenomenal, but he can shoot as well. And when you get a kid like that can take care of the basketball, dribble, drive, and then dish it out, it's almost like having 6 players on the floor and what he brings to Huntington. I like Huntington's shot this year. They've got a big team. They've got some guys back. But, again, you lose the big guy down low with Tubbs. That makes it tough.
Well, Hurricane has a lot of players back as well, too. So, I mean, that's just got to make sure you get out of the region.
Oh, yeah.
And they both can, the way the setup is. 2 teams can get out of each region. But still, you've still got to talk about Washington. You've still got some good teams spread out. Hedgesville seems to be good again. So we'll see how that all plays out. And, we're talking about some players who have already committed. Brandon Napper, Jr. at South Charleston, committed to WVU. Chase Hardler, Jr. at Wheeling Central, committed to WVU. Both also had offers from Marshall. And neither is signed because you can't sign until your senior year. But on the girls' side of things, you talked about the signees already. You've got one commitment as a junior, Taryn McCutcheon, who committed as a sophomore actually last year at Parkersburg South. She is committed to Michigan State. Then you've got throughout the rest of West Virginia, you've also got Hope Lester at Westside, who has signed with Marshall. Madison Morris at Spring Valley, who has signed with Marshall. You've also got Shayna Gore, who 2 years ago led Logan on that spectacular run. That was almost a Hoosier-style run up to Charleston. And then they had some expectations last year and didn't get out of the sectional. But she's back for her senior year and has already signed at Marshall as well. So there's some players around here.
Well, and you step just across the river into Kentucky. You have Logan Fraley from Boyd County. She actually played against West Carter tonight and was making it rain out in Summit. She was dropping trays from all over the parking lot. And the other thing too is you take these girls, Morris, Fraley, Logan, or Shayna from Logan. They've been playing travel basketball together for many years, and now you're going to take all 4 of these and you're going to assemble them into one program. That really brings in that element that you put one team together with players that are familiar with each other. You're bringing an element into that program that is already the familiarity of everybody there. That just boosts that program that much more.
So, again, we are very early in the season, and obviously we're very early in our opening show for this year. And, again, we're with you from 9 to midnight here on the Fast Break Sports Network. Again, to give us a call, 1-855-345-5485. 4709. You give us a call. You'll talk to Nathan, our call screener. He'll get you set up. He'll get you through to us, and we'll get you on the air here. And, again, we got some new affiliates that we'll talk about as well. We want to thank them in brief. But, again, this show is for you, the listener, so we're not going to bore you down with a whole lot of that type of information. But, again, our number, 1-855-345-4709. We'll be back with more Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Tonight we welcome all of our newest affiliates. FI Lindside 106.7 FM, official voice of the James Monroe Mavericks. And we welcome our old friends WVOW, Logan 101.9 FM and 1290 AM, voice of the Logan Wildcats, Chapmanville Tigers, and the Man Hillbillies. WFGH 4K 90.7 FM, official voice of the Tulsa Rebels, Spring Valley Timberwolves, and the Wayne Pioneers. WQAZLP Edmond, Fayetteville 98.5 FM and 101.5 FM in Beckley, voice of the Fayetteville Pirates, Oak Hill Red Devils, Valley Fayette Greyhounds, Meadowbridge Wildcats, and the Midland Trail Patriots. WYAP LP Clay 101.7 FM, official voice of the Clay County Panthers. Marshall University and 88.1 FM WMUL Huntington, voice of the Thundering Herd. Go to basketballnight.com. Listen in online. Watch our online high-definition video. Thanks again to rsnsports.com for carrying our video stream tonight. If you're a Comcast cable subscriber, we're on channel 25. If you're an Armstrong cable subscriber, we're on digital channel 204. There's no place better to be than right here. It's Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Follow us on Twitter at @hoops_roundup, @hoops_roundup. Tweet us your team scores and updates, or follow our collection of scores throughout the night. You're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Call us toll-free, 855-345-4709.
Celebrating high school basketball around the Mountain State, you're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to your hosts, James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
And we're back here on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. 9:17 on this Friday night on the opening night of the show. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you, and some scores already coming in. We'll talk more about those. Again, we try to keep you updated throughout the night because those scores roll in all through the evening. We're with you 9 to midnight, as we mentioned before. There are some games that we've already catching a hold of here, James, that have been a little bit of a surprise. Already some scores coming in tonight. Early in the season even, you can be surprised, and we have been by a couple of games.
Yeah, the Fairmont Senior Washington score that just popped up on our screen in the break, and we were talking at the break. This is a Washington team coming in that was averaging over 100 a game, actually 102 to be exact. They were held to 44 points tonight, and I don't know what secret that Fairmont Senior was using tonight, but obviously the Patriots were stalled out, and you take something like that and you see that this early in the season, it shows that the possibilities are still out there. But at the same time, you keep into fact, this is the third game of the season. And upsets like this, if you want to call them upsets, not that uncommon. You see something like this in February, that's when the red light really goes off, the flag goes up like, oh gosh, what happened? But this is something that definitely we'll look back in February at this game and see what happened. Was this a turning point? Was this a blueprint? Did Fairmont Senior see something over those first two games that Washington played in that they were able to do? And then is there somebody else down the road that can duplicate that? But put a check mark beside that one. We'll come back to it in February and revisit it to see what effects that has down the road. But definitely, that was not one I was expecting to see. I actually double-checked that score before saying that out after seeing what Washington had been able to do in the first two games.
That definitely kind of puts Double-A on notice, too, because Fairmont Senior was a team that was a little bit young last year, made a nice run into Charleston. That team could be one to keep an eye on throughout the course of the season as well.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is that you see a team like Fairmont Senior made that run last year, and that's kind of one of the things. What residual effects do you take with you from a team standpoint of making that run into Charleston and then maybe coming up just a little short, like what Fairmont Senior did? Is that extra motivation, that will that you need to push forward to step up and take down a Washington, a AAA Washington at that? That is something that also sends a shot across the bow in the entire state. Not class. Take the class out of it. You just took down a powerhouse of a AAA team. Or did you expose a powerhouse that used to be of a powerhouse team? It's interesting to say, but man, what a great topic to have first night of the show.
Yeah, and several storylines that we'll be following, especially early in the season, because again, these storylines develop as the season progresses. I mean, when you go back to last year, maybe not a lot of people throughout the state of West Virginia, for instance, saw Morgantown's girls being the eventual AAA state champion. But as we followed them throughout the season, we could see them make improvement. They were getting a little closer every time they were losing to Parkersburg South, I think 3 times last year.
Yeah.
But it was getting closer and getting closer. They were playing better. And when they got to Charleston, the one that counted, they got them.
Well, and I remember watching Morgantown early in the season, covering Spring Valley, and there was a lot of hype about Morgantown earlier in the season. I was like, wow, this doesn't seem to be a team that's going to be able to make that run. But the one thing that I did point out, if that team could find a complement to Olivia Segi that could help her out on the court, this team has the potential because she is so good with the basketball in her hands. She's so comfortable. Pressure does not slow her down whatsoever. And that was one thing that Spring Valley ran into, was the fact of, with her speed, the trap was almost irrelevant because she could just dribble right through the trap and she's in the floor. And that was the only game that I can honestly remember last year that a team took Spring Valley out of its full court trap. That's what the Timberwolves, they buttered their bread off of that. But then getting into Charleston and watching that team in March, and I said, wow, this team is dangerous right now. And that's the thing. You get to that spot, you have the game plan, especially with what happened with Park South. You know what works, what doesn't. They were able to execute the game plan perfectly. And we'll hear from Jason White at the 10:30 segment as he'll call in. Morgantown off to a 4-0 start. How much is that, again, as we talked like with Fairmont Senior, how much is that team carried over of wanting to go back-to-back now after getting that win last season? Big start quick off a 4-0 start. That's a good way to start the season.
Right, and just to give some perspective to how these storylines developed throughout the course of the season. Going into last year, I think that, for episode 1 of a year ago, we would have been talking about in AAA girls, Spring Valley and Logan. They had that outstanding semifinal game from the year before that Logan won and went to the state title game and lost to a very young Parkersburg South team. But, both Spring Valley and Logan had a lot of players back going into last year. They both got beat in the sectional.
Yeah, neither team made it out of the sectionals.
That's just how it works.
And it was a crazy game. I remember going back to that sectional. Spring Valley, Cabell Midland, it was a tight game at the half, and Cabell Midland made a great adjustment defensively and out of the locker room. Took both of his big girls off the block, moved them all the way out near half court. And Spring Valley's guards struggled with the pressure of giving up 6 inches to each one of those post players. Spring Valley couldn't do what it wanted to do, couldn't make that adjustment. Cabell Midland had the upset, maybe one of the biggest upsets in all of AAA girls basketball. And then on the other side of that, you see Huntington come up, got into a gritty game. It was a very physical game. And Huntington did something that a lot of people said couldn't be done. You let Shayna Gore go do whatever she wants to, and you take the other 4 players off the floor. And that's exactly what happened. Gore scored, I think it was almost 50 points in the game. They only scored like 53. She had all but, I think, 6 points of the Wildcats in that contest. But either way, Huntington was able to come away with a win. And it's a kind of a double-edged sword as a coach when you do that, because if it doesn't work out, you look like a goat. But you take what Huntington was able to do in that contest. It was able to set a game plan and go out and execute. And had you told anyone in this time last year that Spring Valley and Logan are not going to make it out of the sectionals, they'd laughed at you. That's how crazy this state and this game can be, because you can have one night that you're off and your opponent knocks you off, and especially on the biggest stage, nobody ever dreamed that it was not going to be Spring Valley, but Spring Valley and Logan not headed to Charleston.
Right. And Calvin Midland ended up making the trip to Charleston because they were able to beat St. Albans, in that play-in game, in the regional play-in game, to advance. And so Calvin Midland got to the state tournament a year ago. Nobody saw that coming necessarily either. So that's what makes basketball fun, because I think sometimes we look at things at the end of the season and say, well, okay, yeah, that was predictable.
Yeah, it makes sense at the end of the season when you can sit back and, as we call it, Monday morning quarterback, and you can see, well, this happened, that happened, what have you. But, yeah, no one saw Cabell Midland making that run, and there were several other – nobody saw Hurricane making that run into the playoffs. Nobody saw Fairmont Senior going as deep into Double-A as it did. It's one of those things you just never know. But when you get teams that start getting hot – to start February, you get that momentum coming out of January, and you get that momentum, that hot touch, everything's working. And you start getting players that maybe have been a little beaten and banged up, and they start getting healthy again, and you start growing your bench from 7 players to 8 players, 8 players to 9 players. That's when you can pick the tempo up. That's when, if somebody gets that silly second foul early in the first quarter, you've got somebody to turn to. And unfortunately, when you have teams that are doing that, you also have teams going the other way. And sometimes in the state, you run into that team on the downhill slide, and that's when you can take advantage.
And you go back a year ago on the boys' side of things, Huntington got off to an amazing start to the season, and then they had some problems in the middle of the year, and they were able to straighten those out, and by the end of the year, be a very good basketball team. I thought that was a very interesting way how that worked out. They had that semifinal matchup with Washington. I think Washington started to feel a little bit of pressure because they were undefeated, trying to be the first undefeated team in West Virginia in 25 years. You have to go back a ways. It's been a while. It's hard for a boys basketball team in West Virginia to go undefeated. I think also you have to look at what happened to Wheeling Park. That's a program that has been good for so long that took a little bit of a step back last year. I don't think they stay down very long. That's a program, not a team per se.
Yeah, you don't reload, you rebuild.
Right.
You don't rebuild, you reload. And that's something with Wheeling Park, like you said, it has the athletes there, and it may have one down year, but I'm like you, I expect that team to bounce back this year. Maybe not completely this year, but within the next 2. We'll see it right back where it was in the past years.
The run-and-gun Patriots of Parkersburg South a year ago, who were scoring up in the 80s regularly, and even in games they were losing. They pushed the pace. And they got to Charleston. Hedgesville, a team that notoriously will slow the game down. They played a track meet first quarter, and then Hedgesville slowed the game down and was able to pull away and win.
And I remember talking about that game. We were like, "Oh my gosh, what is going to happen here?" And then we see Hedgesville go out, and like you said, it's a track meet, and I think that really caught Parkersburg South off guard. Like, what are we doing? We're going to get to play our game. They wasn't ready for that. And then when Hedgesville got the lead, they were like, "Okay, 4 corners, let's slow it down." And then that's when the panic factor kicks in for Parkersburg South, because they were not expecting what they were given. Then they had to make the adjustments, and then they were taken back and had to go back to what they were expecting. They were all over the place. It was a great game plan by Hedgesville, and I think that was really the thing that allowed Hedgesville to slow down the tempo and take Parkersburg South out of its rhythm and then go out and attack when it wanted to, and that's what pushed it ahead.
And the Bluefield Beavers, who had a very senior-dominated team last year, were able to repeat in Double-A. They beat Robert C. Byrd in the championship game and kind of ran away from the Eagles in that title game. And RCB was undefeated going in. And, there was that great build-up for the semifinal round game between Bluefield and Polka, a very young Polka team that is already starting to They seem to pick right up where they left off last year. But a Poca team that only lost one game in the regular season a year ago, and unfortunately they had some foul trouble that seemed to kind of mar that game, and Bluefield was able to pull away and win it going away, and then wins the state championship. And then single A, Wheeling Central beats Charleston Catholic in the championship game in overtime by 10. That was the final game for Coach Gillespie there.
And if I'm not mistaken, the only time that they had that game tied was at the buzzer to go into overtime. It was a back and forth battle, but they never was able to pull back until they got it till the end of regulation, and then, like you said, a 10-point win.
And I was in Charleston on the Thursday of the first round when number 8 seed Parkersburg Catholic was just about the first number 8 seed to win a game at the state tournament since the seeding process started several years ago now. But they had Wheeling Central beat. Wheeling Central scored at the buzzer to send that game to overtime. And then Wheeling Central went on and won a state championship. That's how competitive it was.
And like you said, that's how you set things up to get it to where it's not about – when you get to the postseason, nobody cares if you're 29-1. Nobody cares if you're undefeated. Everybody's 0-0. It's a fresh start. It's a new beginning. And it's like you said, it's never happened. An 8 seed has never been able to get there, but it was ever so close. And it's almost like every year you see it in NCAA basketball. 16 is going to knock off a 1 eventually. An 8's going to get a 1 eventually in the state tournaments. Just win.
Yeah, right now we're going to step aside and take a break. When we come back, we'll have another check of the scoreboard. And again, you can give us a phone call, 1-855-345-4709. We'll get you on the air. This is Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
You're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. High school basketball action in West Virginia is heating up as teams focus on a trip to the state championship in Charleston. Stay up to date with your local team and its progress all season long with Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia for 3 hours every Friday night from 9 p.m. to midnight. Listen online or on great radio stations throughout the Mountain State. Hear sports writers, broadcasters, coaches, players, and your calls recapping your team's game. Visit basketballnight.com for more details of how you can be part of the show. Follow us on Twitter @hoops_roundup, @hoops_roundup. Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia, your one-stop shop for all things in West Virginia high school basketball. Tonight we'll be thanking many of the people and affiliates that help Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia possible. We also want to thank each one of you that call, send texts, tweets, and emails. We appreciate all our listeners, viewers, followers, correspondents, coaches, players, and all our guests. We want you to become part of the show. Go to our webpage, basketballnight.com. You can call, tweet, text, or email. Join us tonight. And you can call toll-free 1-855-345-4709. 855-345-4709. And a shout out to James W. Barker tweeting us tonight, Trace Jarrett at every game, Caitlin Nichols, Dave Morrison, and Matt McVeigh.
This is high school basketball's home for the Mountain State. Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to Basketball Night in West Virginia with James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
9:33 on this Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling with you, along with James Collier. We'll have the Coach Rick Marone a little bit later on in this program. Of course, the Tulsa Lady Rebels in action tonight, so we'll get with Coach Marone a little bit later on. But James, before we go into the scoreboard again, and we'll get you another scoreboard update here coming up. We talked about some teams making their presence known already. Some big wins for some teams. One of them, of course, being Fairmont Senior. How about, though, going back to the girls' side of things real quick, Hurricane getting that win over Capital. If you followed Hurricane sports the past few years, baseball and boys basketball, then the name J.T. Rogaszewski is probably one that you've become familiar with. Outstanding baseball player, outstanding basketball player as well. There's a Rogaszewski who made her mark in her freshman year tonight for Hurricane.
Yeah, we talk about Rogaszewski, and this young man, he pitched his team to a state championship up in Charleston or this summer, headed to North Carolina to play some baseball, but his sister's going to try to leave her name on the basketball side of things, as tonight it was Hurricane getting past Capital in a game in which senior Abby Watson, she's the leader of that team. That team goes as Abby Watson goes, but she was disqualified. She fouled out with about 4 minutes left to go in the contest, and Rogaszewski leads that team. It was a 12-point game. When Watson fouls out, Capital never gets close. Hurricane moves on. And that's something I said last year, too. You give someone else on the court that can help take the pressure off of Abby Watson to where she doesn't have to be the primary ball handler. You let her spot up and shoot. That Hurricane team's going to be a dangerous team because that girl can shoot from about anywhere inside of 25 feet. And if she gets on her mark, especially from long range, she can either push a game out of hand quickly or she can cut into a deficit and bring it back into single digits with just a few possessions. She's phenomenal to watch. She typically plays pretty much under control. But the other thing, too, is that referees are starting to tighten up a little bit on the calls. They're taking away all of these hand checks, these body checks. You can't really touch people anymore, especially when they have the basketball. And players are having to learn how to replay defense, if you will. It's crazy to think you take a kid that's been playing basketball for 12 years and you say, you can't do that anymore. And then expect them to do that on a given night. But the thing is that as a senior, you take her off the court, she's going to learn what to have to do real quickly. She's going to make that adjustment or she's going to be sitting on the bench. But to have Rogaszewski step up, that's big for that team because that allows that team to have someone else to go to than just that one player. And to kind of push that in perspective, you've got a defensive team that can go out and lock down Watson and go double team on her. You run a box in one, you run a triangle in two, and you take the basketball out of her hands. You control Hurricane. You don't do that anymore with Rogaszewski.
So that should be again. Sometimes you learn a little bit as you go, and there's another Rogaszewski. You knew that. That seems to be like a pretty good athletic family. At this point.
There seems to be an athletic gene in that family.
Yeah,
it kind of tumbles all the way from the top to the bottom. But
and you mentioned the officiating, and this is something we'll talk about much more as we go on throughout the night. But we do have resident referee Bo Anderson, who is a regular contributor to this program, and we'll have him on a little bit later on, we hope, tonight as well. Who knows where he is calling a game tonight, but he gets out and calls a game about 4 or 5 nights a week, and he's always able to come in and answer our questions, talk about interesting situations, or such that we kind of learn a little bit from him as well in terms of just not just basic rules, but sometimes the structure and the administration of the game as well from the official standpoint.
Well, and with the new addition of video to our program this year, we may have to have him come in and explain the backwards charge. There's still some people scratching their heads over that one from last year, but it's nice to be able to have his opportunity or the opportunity to speak with him for when we have those crazy situations, because there's always one or two every single year that I've been around the sport since I was in high school, and I'll step back and go, did that really just happen? Or how did that happen? And you have so many people in the stands that they know the rules of the game, and they have absolutely no clue. And one of the biggest misconceptions in the game of basketball is backcourt violations. Where can that player be around that midcourt stripe, especially whenever the basketball is being inbounded in the front court and they catch it in the backcourt and they're straddling the line? And there's so many misconceptions on that. The other was a player that goes out of bounds and never reestablishes presence inbounds before they touch the basketball. And you make that call as an official, and people they're ready to throw popcorn at you from the stands, but they just don't understand, because those are those are things that you see as an official maybe once or twice a season. And you can't expect the casual fan to understand that. But that's the great thing is with Bo, we can throw out those crazy situations, such as if a ball hits a light fixture in play, or if a ball goes over top of the backboard, if it touches the side of the backboard, is that in play or is it out of play? So if you have questions for our resident referee, shoot us a message at Twitter. It's hoops_roundup. Make sure to get the underscore in there. And any questions or situations that you see at a game, we'll pass it along to him when we have him on later on this evening.
And again, visit us at basketballnight.com for all of that information as well. And James, time for another look at the scoreboard.
Let's dive right into the boys' side of things. We'll start there first, as it was Hedgesville in the State Farm Tournament with a winner over Fort Hill, Maryland, 62-35. Still a lot of games still being played. We'll get a lot of these scores in later on in the program. Independence a winner over Greenbrier West, 83-69. Huntington makes the trip over to Ironton, comes away with a win, 77-57. This score now just coming in, Fairmont Senior, big win over Washington. We talked about that in the last segment, 82-44. Big win for Fairmont Senior. Scott, a 6-point win over Wyoming East, 78-72. Woodrow Wilson, nice win for the Eagles, 63-47 over Oak Hill. Polka, the Dots, knock out Nitro, 91-57. Don't get that team fired up this early in the season. Let them start hanging 91 a night. That will be a crazy ride for the Polka Dots. Logan leading Liberty Raleigh 50-44. That game last time checked was late third quarter. We'll check an updated score on that as soon as we get. Herbert Hoover falls to Mingo Central 65-58. It was Greenbrier East. Big win over Roanoke Catholic 94-53. Chapmanville doubles up Tulsa 79-36. It was Buffalo over St. Joe Central 74-56. Riverside knocks off St. Albans 67-42. Lincoln by 12 over Kaiser 70-58. Cameron with a 16-point win over Bridgeport, Ohio 68-52. Let's go to the girls' side. Pocahontas County and James Monroe. It's a 15-point win for Pocahontas County, 60-45. Grafton eases past Clay Battelle, 65-41. It was Clay County over Scott, 68-46. And one last score. Capital, as we talked about just a little bit ago, 63-49. A 14-point win for the Redskins over the Capital Cougars in a game in which another Rogaszewski makes her presence known. That's a check of your Basketball Friday Night Scoreboard Update.
Again, tweet us the scores at hoops_roundup. And, again, we're in week one. We're working on it. We'll get those scores in there as best we can. 90-plus games tonight. I mean, we just come right out of the gate firing.
Well, and here's something, too, that if you haven't given our website a glance, and you check the website last season during the program, especially at the latter part of the season, I'm going to say you might want to give it a look because it's going to look much different. The goal is at this point that each and every week we're going to have every score, not just on Friday night. We're going to have every score every night of the week. We worked hard all through this week. A great job by Braxton Crisp and Marcus Constantino to put all the pieces together. And then Braxton was the mastermind figuring out how to import all of the schedules in. So we have every schedule from around the state of West Virginia. Now, on my side this last 2 days, in between finals here at Marshall, I've been trying to go through, clean up some duplications and stuff, and I was kidding people this morning. I said, man, I wished I had the talent of Rain Man. I probably would have memorized the girls' basketball schedule by now. But it's, we're 2 weeks in. Girls' basketball 2 weeks in, first weekend for the boys. And our goal is that we're going to be the one-stop shop for everything high school basketball. You're going to be able to go there. You're going to see standings. You're going to see rankings, the latest polls. Every time they drop, you're going to get those. And you're going to find the schedules for every single school in the state of West Virginia. If you find something that we do not have, there's a link on the website. Hit us at Twitter, hoops_roundup. There's a number that you can text us you can email us, and we will definitely pass that information along, because this is something that we identified last year was something that was lacking in the state of West Virginia, and we want to be able to try to be that filler, that go-to, to where if you need something for West Virginia high school athletics in the basketball on the hardwood, Basketball Friday Night or basketballnight.com, that's where you're going to go to find it.
And again, we are an interactive show, so
more of you,
Twitter,
less of us.
Right. So you guys are basically our eyes and ears at some of these games. I mean, James and I are sitting here back in the nice cozy confines of the studios here, but I know there are a lot of people that are just getting home or just on their way home from games tonight, and definitely want to hear from you. And we'll hit the phone lines in just a minute because we're going to have to take a break. But again, the phone number 1-855-345-4709. When we come back, we'll hear about that Chapmanville Regional Tulsa boys game here on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Become part of the show. Join us on the phone and share your team's game. We want you to become part of Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Call toll-free 1-855-345-4709. 855-345-4709. Tweet the show with your scores at @hoops_roundup. @hoops_roundup. Our text number, text scores to 304-249-4924. 304-249-4924. Email your scores to scores@basketballnight.com. Scores@basketballnight.com. Make sure you go to our website, basketballnight.com, and you can check out all the scores that we have online. A big shout out to the people tweeting tonight. Arlie Bush, Key Player Nation, Kelly Lynn Cooper, Wheeling Park Basketball, Tom Roten, John Sissy Barker, John Allen, J.R. Van Hoos, Rick Kozlowski, Mr. Kelly, Jason White, and J.R. Van Hoos. Become part of the show, and you can watch our stream online. Go to basketballnight.com for our HD streaming video. You can also listen in on Armstrong Cable, channel 204. You can watch the show on Comcast Cable 25, but right now we don't have any audio. We're working on that, and that seems to be a problem with Comcast. Sorry to throw Comcast under the bus. This is Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Thanks for being part of the show, and join us online or on the show. 855-345-4709.
Stay up to date on your favorite teams. Check out basketballnight.com. Now, back to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia with Coach Rick Marone, James Collier, Rudy Raines, and Ryan Epling.
West Virginia, week 1 of the show. Happy to have you along, and so many of you out there who are listening and tweeting us. We appreciate all of you guys. Again, you guys are our source of information, so definitely appreciate all the efforts that you guys are making with us. And just our Twitter account over the past year, we're now up to 910 followers, and that came with very little actual attempts to promote that. So we're doing very well with that. We're very pleased to have everyone who is listening in as well. And again, our goal every Friday night, get you all the scores. And one of the scores that came in from tonight's action, Cardinal Conference, they don't waste any time. They get right into it. Chapmanville Regional beating Tulsa 79-36. The Tigers get the win over the Rebels. That's a Tigers ball club that went to Charleston a year ago. Chris Kidd with WVOW joins us now, and Chris, Chapmanville Regional, a nice win tonight.
Yeah, they came out of the gates just running up and down the floor with Tulsa from the beginning. And again, we know that Tulsa's having a tough go trying to rebuild right now, and they seem at a disadvantage from the beginning. Tulsa didn't even get a shot up until 2.5 minutes left in the first quarter, and they didn't score but 3 points in the first quarter altogether. I think they turned it over on the first 7 possessions of the game. But, again, a lot of that had to do with the pressure that Chapmanville was putting on them. And, the Tigers are going really deep this year, about 8, 9, 10 deep overall, with freshmen and sophomores seeing a lot of playing time right now. And you add in Josh Butcher, who had 37 points tonight in the game, and that was after he had kind of a slow start to the game. And then you add in Drew Williamson, and anyone in the southern area that knows the Williamson family, they know that that's one of the best bloodlines you can probably come from, with Andy Paul being a standout at Harts High School, and then Marshall, and then his sister Andi, which plays softball at Marshall and was in Japan playing, and then even his older brother Paul, who won a state championship at Logan and played at WVU for a season and still playing in college ball. And Drew Williamson had 19 points tonight as well starting out. And this is a team that could possibly only get better if Ben Ike, the Nigerian transfer, if he becomes eligible in January, like a lot of people in the Chapmanville area are hoping he's going to be. This could be a dangerous team. But as you know, Ryan, I mean, this is a very ugly section and region to try and get out of, with Poca, Mingo Central, Scott, and now even Herbert Hoover, who gave Mingo all they could handle from what I heard tonight. That's going to be a really rough region and section to get out of, and I think possibly a couple of teams that could make the state tournament are going to be left home just because of the ins and outs of what happens in sectional and regional play.
Always fun in that sectional, too, because, again, sometimes it may seem like we have a good handle on it, and then somebody goes and gets beat. Chapmanville Regional last year, again, making the state tournament. And Chris, a lot of those kids are back this year. Did you see the extension of that run tonight, maybe a little bit?
Well, that's what they're trying to do. Again, they saw where Mingo Central added a few new pieces to their puzzle, and then you know that Poca had pretty much everybody back on their roster this year, and then Herbert Hoover evidently added some more firepower to theirs. And I think Alan Hatcher knew that he was going to have to trim some fat and also add a couple of big names as well in order to get this team to where they need to be to compete in the section. And that's where these games are going to get really interesting because I know Chapmanville, they go to Scott the day after New Year's Day. And I don't believe that EK will be eligible by then, but this is a team that is gunning to try and get back to where they were. And they're playing with the confidence that they can right now. And then, a lot of people forget about Trey Dalton. He's only 5'9", but he's one of the best ball handlers and best point guards in the state all around. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes with the ball. He's a tremendous facilitator, finds the open man as well as anybody you can see, and he gives up his own shots to make sure others get theirs. And in today's basketball, it's hard to get a point guard to give up shots. Just ask Russell Westbrook the next time you see him. It's hard for these guys to just be an assist man, and Trey Dalton does it so effortlessly on this team. When you got so many scores that are out there for Chapmanville now, they're going to be difficult to defend. And tonight, I think they only had 6 turnovers on the game, and defensively, they just play lockdown. And like we said, we know Tulsa's in a rebuilding situation right now, and I think you'll get more of a truer test on Tuesday because Herbert Hoover comes into Chapmanville on Tuesday. So I think that'll be a much more interesting test whenever they come in. But again, Sean Thompson and that Tulsa team, I mean, you could tell that was a team that didn't quit tonight. I mean, they kept fighting in the second half, were battling for every loose ball. He was doing a great job of getting his kids together in timeouts and coaching them on the fundamentals of things. And, I think they've got a good coach in place now at Tulsa. Again, stability's been something that they're struggling with right now, but I think they've got a good guy in place, and it'd be good to see that program get back up again because they've got a great basketball tradition in Tulsa. A lot of great people in that area too have done a lot to help me out, even when I've come up there, just without even asking. So you hope they get back on top sooner than later. But right now it looks like a three-man race in that section with Scott, Chapmanville, and Mingo Central, obviously. And then you look at the other side of that, Pope is going to have a little bit tougher time this year if Herbert Hoover has progressed to the point that a lot of people say they have. And I'm looking forward to Tuesday night whenever they come in just to see what it is they have and how Chapmanville matches up with them.
Well, Chris, I think a big game tonight and again, I know you had the Chapmanville Regional Tulsa game, but I don't know if you've heard the score on this yet or not. Scott beat Wyoming East tonight.
Oh, really?
So
what was the final?
Does that not make things a little more it was a close game, a 6-point game, 78-72. Scott got that win over Wyoming East. Wyoming East is a Region 3 powerhouse. Region 3 has been where all the power has been in West Virginia in Class AA over the past really decade or so. That's a big win for Scott and a big win for the region, and kind of let you know just how good the Cardinal Conference and the Coalfield area is this year already, early in the year.
Yeah, because I think Wyoming East, like you said, they've won multiple state championships just in the last 10 years, and to hear that Scott was able to go in there and get a big win against them, I mean that adds the difficulty in that session, because I think Scott's got most everybody back, except I believe they lost the Ables kid and maybe one or two others, if I'm not mistaken, but they've got most everybody back, and I think a lot of people may forget about Scott in that section. There's no way anyone should at this point. I think a lot of people get caught up in just some of the transfers from Mingo, the one that may be coming into Chapmanville and some of the others, and a lot of people forget that this is a Scott team that's been together for a long time, and they're very well coached. They've got an excellent program in Scott. I mean that last year, you look at just the sectional alone, Ryan. Chapmanville beat Mingo Central in the sectional semis 48-44. They beat Scott in the sectional finals 54-53 on that contested three-pointer at the end, and then they had to win the regional final over Nicholas County on the last-second three-pointer by Josh Butcher. So 3 sectional and regional games decided by 8 points combined. I mean, last year it was already a dogfight. This year, I mean, it's going to be an absolute knockdown drag-out whenever they get towards late February and on into early March. So I'm telling you, whenever you get to those regular season games this year, transferring over into January, whenever Mingo meets Scott and Chapmanville meets Scott and Chapmanville meets Mingo and so on and so forth, those are going to be some big measuring stick games. I mean, these teams have played each other in summer league and other things, and they flat out don't like each other. They really have resentment towards each other, and I think you'll see a lot of that whenever they face off this year. I'm hoping everything goes well and it's just good basketball the way around. But these are teams that they like to get at each other, and they like to see what each other are made of. And I think this year you're looking for a huge collision between those 3 teams come the end of the year.
Chris, looks like another fun year covering Chapmanville Regional for you down there for WVOW. Thank you for calling, and look forward to hearing from you again next week.
All right, well, thanks, Ryan. You guys have a good night.
All right, that's Chris Kidd, WVOW. And James, one thing he mentioned during his time with us there was the play of freshman Drew Williamson. Drew Williamson, the son of Andy Paul Williamson, younger brother of Paul Herbert Williamson and Andy Williamson. We talked about Mary Rogaszewski and the bloodline of Hurricane. The Williamson family of basketball at Harts/Logan/Chapmanville Regional now runs pretty good too.
Yeah, it's a pretty good river running through that athletic gene pool that we should say, but it's one of those things. I pointed out so many times, it may be a small state, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have the athletic ability of some of your larger states. And sometimes I almost think that by being such a smaller state than everyone else around it, it forces players to go out and play harder because they have more to go out and prove. They have to show that, all right, that we may not be as big as Texas or Florida or Ohio or Indiana or Kentucky, even at that. But it doesn't mean that we're any less talented. And you see players, they really take it personal, especially whenever they feel like that they're being slighted because they're from West Virginia. And like you said, the bloodline of the Williamsons that goes back, you talk about an athlete. Andi Williamson, she goes to Japan. She now is a professional pitcher. She pitches in the United States for the Chicago Bandits. She goes twice a year now to Japan and plays as one of 8 players from the United States that goes over and plays. Her and actually Monica Abbott, they're teammates in the spring and the summer. Then they pitch against each other in the fall and the winter. So, you talk about not having athletes here, you better check yourself because there's some great athletes. The Rogaszewskis being a point. The Williamsons obviously having the bloodline running wells there.
So definitely. And again, this is why I tell you, go to Charleston in March. Take in at least one session of the state basketball tournament. You don't have to go to the championship games. Those are fun, obviously, and that's when all the stakes are really at their highest. But just go to a tournament game. They're so much fun, and it's a great setting. They run it right in Charleston. But right now, we're going to step aside and take a break. We'll come back. We'll get another check of the scoreboard, and we'll have Coach Marone. He's going to join us. We'll have him as well as Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia rolls on here on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Big shout out to all the people tweeting the show tonight. Jason Jackson, Craig Duck, Andy Layton, Coach Eddie, Bobby Combs, and Pirate Basketball. You're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Tonight we welcome our newest affiliates, WHFI Linside, 106.7 FM, official voice of the James Monroe Mavericks. Also, we welcome back our old friends, WVOW, Logan 101.9 FM, and 1290 AM, voice of the Logan Wildcats, Chapmanville Tigers, and the Man Hillbillies. WFGH Fort Gay, 90.7 FM, official voice of the Tulsa Rebels, Spring Valley Timberwolves, and the Wayne Pioneers. WQAZLP Edmond Fayetteville, 98.5 FM and 101.5 FM Beckley, voice of the Fayetteville Pirates, Oak Hill Red Devils, Valley Fed Greyhounds, Meadow Ridge Wildcats, and the Midland Trail Patriots. WYAPLP Clay, 101.7 FM, official voice of the Clay County Panthers. Marshall University, and 88.1 FM WMUL Huntington, voice of the Thundering Herd. Go to basketballnight.com, listen online, or watch our online high-definition video. Thanks again to rsnsports.com for carrying our video stream tonight. And if you're an Armstrong cable subscriber, we're on digital channel 204. Also on Comcast, channel 25. No audio at the moment, though. There is no place better to be than right here for basketball in West Virginia. Friday night, it's Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Follow us on Twitter at @hoops_roundup. @hoops_roundup.
Celebrating high school basketball around the Mountain State, you're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to your hosts, James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
1 hour in, 2 to go here on Basketball Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you. 10:02 on this Friday, and the opening Friday of the boys' season. Girls' season, of course, into its second week. And James will have a scoreboard check for us here in just a moment. But before we do the scoreboard check, Coach Rick Marone is generally going to be sitting to my right throughout the course of the season. Right now, though, he's sitting in a undisclosed location.
That's probably a good thing, though.
Yeah, so somewhere down Route 52, right, Rick?
Yeah, I've always heard that I had a great face for radio, and
I'll second
I'm gonna
that.
let you guys soften up the audience with your appearance, and I am in an undisclosed location tonight.
You know, we've already got compliments that the set looks so much better this year. But I thought it had to do with what was behind us, but apparently it was because you weren't here.
Well, I always look for you guys to build me up, and my self-esteem is at an all-time low, so feel free to pile on. And I don't know if Referee Bo would even throw a flag on that for piling on, but feel free to do so.
Well, Coach, your ball club in action tonight. How'd that go?
Tell you what, Ryan, we had a great event here at Tulsa High School, and we had our BJM Key Player Shootout. It's a holiday tournament we've hosted for many years, and we had a great field tonight. The first game was George Washington. They took on Belfry, and George Washington gets a big win in that one. It was close at halftime. GW pulled away down the stretch, and a very impressive team. And the second game we played Buffalo Putnam and got off to a really good start. And then we won 57-38. So tomorrow night here at Rebel Arena at 5 o'clock, it'll be Belfry and Buffalo. And then at 7 o'clock for the championship, we'll be playing George Washington. But it's a great event, raises money for a scholarship fund that's been set up for student athletes here in Wayne County. So it was a great night of basketball. And as you know, Ryan, you've worked this tournament several times. Also a good night for hospitality rooms and all kinds of meet and greets with a lot of old faces that come out for it. So we had a good night tonight.
Hey, Coach, from a media standpoint, you guys do that thing right. That's definitely always been something that I enjoyed getting to go to. And unfortunately, I can't go this year, but definitely glad to have you on. And I know that means a whole lot to you as well from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, it's something we started. A good friend of mine, Mark Cisco, we actually started this tournament about 12 years ago, and it was the Key Player Shootout. We've had teams, Ryan, North Marion, when they were just starting their run in girls basketball. Hedgesville's been here. Coach America brought them down. We've had Spring Valley was a regular participant for years, and it's just been quality basketball, and all the proceeds go again to the scholarship fund set up for my mother, Barbara J. Marone, who was a longtime coach in Wayne County, and it's given annually to a Spring Valley and a Tulsa High graduating senior based on academic and athletic excellence. So it's a great way to kind of remember her and her career, and it is personal for me because I probably wouldn't be in coaching if not for her influence. And, I always looked up to her, and even when I was a little 12-year-old boy wanting to run the clock at the girls' basketball games there at CK, she always encouraged me. So special time. It's great at the holidays to do it, and just a great night tonight.
Well, Coach, let's talk about your ball club a little bit now. I know anybody who's followed girls basketball across West Virginia over the past basically 20 years, your Tulsa Lady Rebels have been a regular fixture in the state tournament in Charleston. It's been a couple of years now, but how's this ball club look early on?
Well, I'll tell you, Ryan, we've kind of been trying to regroup. We have not been to Charleston since 2010, but we have been in 2 regional finals, and we were the Cardinal champion last and went undefeated through the conference. But we fell to 7-15 last year. It was disappointing. We just felt like we didn't, accomplish what we set our goals to. So we really had a good commitment in the off season. Very young, Ryan. Tonight we had 7 players in uniform, 4 freshmen and 3 sophomores. We had 2 players that are going to be competing for a state cheer championship tomorrow morning in Charleston, Carrie LaHoda and Michaela Messer. So we're going to be encouraging them, but they're with their squad right now, and we're hoping they can bring a championship back to Tulsa from the state cheer competition, and then hopefully help us try and win a championship here tomorrow night. But I'm excited about this team. They are young. We've never really fielded a team this young, but they make up for it in big heart and big work. There's a lot of talent out there, but, we're freshmen and sophomores and 1 junior and 1 senior. So it keeps coaches like me young again, I guess, because you never know what you're going to see.
So I think a lot of times when coaches have been at one place for a long time in terms of, basically an entire generation of kids to go through, not to make you feel old, Coach, but, when coaches are able to do that, sometimes I think they lose a little bit of their edge, so to speak. And how have you been able to try to keep that? I know numbers have been down there the past few years. That's out of your control, but the level of coaching doesn't change. How do you stay consistent with that?
Well, I tell you, it's a team effort. I love what I do. I think that when you love what you do and you get paid for it, you've kind of got the system licked. And I know you and James and Rudy and all of us, we love basketball. And I love it, and it's a different group every year. And I agree with you. I've told people when I start seeing cycles where I'm getting ready to start coaching players whose mothers I coached, it may to step back, but that's about to happen. A lot of the kids are in middle school now that their parents I coach. So
you just aged yourself.
It's fun. I enjoy it. And I think the off-season run is my gauge. I think when I don't enjoy the off-season work and the strength and conditioning and all of that, I think I'll know that it's time to move on. But that still intrigues me, and it's fun to try and put things together and try and make another run.
Well, Kerry LaHoda, one of the seemingly endless LaHodas that have run through your program over the past 7 or 8 years now. It's 4, right? I think I've counted correctly. But
4.
she's your only senior, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you've got a really young basketball team, and you, as you mentioned earlier, but how do you keep a team through the ebbs and flows of a season that is very young to continue to learn night in, night out, and to be able to apply that, maybe not this year, in some cases, maybe not even next year, but even 2 years down the road?
Well, I tell you, there's a fire. I mean, our community loves basketball. I've had people approach me, Ryan, over the years, and you need to bid this, you need to leave, you need to go here, you need to go there. And, I'm going to be honest, when I started coaching back in I won't tell you what year it was, but, I was a middle school boys coach, and my goal was to be a high school boys coach. And I came to Tulsa in 1990 as assistant coach to Don Smith, and we won the Class AA championship, and I wanted to be a boys head coach. But circumstances changed, and in 93, the girls coach stepped down, and girls were playing in the fall. I don't know if a lot of people remember that. We were playing during football, and they said, "Hey, Coach, we got good news and bad news. I know you want to be a head coach. That's the good news is there's a job open. The bad news, it's the girls' team. They had won 2 games the year before, and I thought, well, I'll think about it. And I thought, well, it'll look good on my resume. And I thought I'll do it for 1 year, and then I'm going to get back into boys coaching. But in 1994, they moved the girls to the winter, and they made us make a decision, and I stuck with the girls as the head coach, and I've never looked back. So every year's an adventure, as they say, and, I love it. And our community's so big in support of basketball, I think that makes it a lot easier.
Marone, I got to check on you. It sounded like the octagon maybe had traveled into your location there. It sounded like you were getting body slammed. I was worried that maybe Randy Payton was coming off the top rope and getting you from behind. Is everything okay?
I am okay. I do have bodyguards posted, and I hope, I do not have the video feed, but I hope that my graphic is very nice and it makes it look very healthy and svelte is what I'm hoping my graphic looks like.
You've never looked better, Coach.
This is the best I've seen you look in years. Whether I look to the right of Ryan or I look onto the screen and I just see your name, that flowing river that is the Rick Marone, it looks fabulous.
Hey, Coach.
I'll tell you what, you guys are doing a great job. I've got to listen to some of the program and excited. And I know Marshall has really done you guys up right there. I can't wait till next week to be there with you in the studio.
And we look forward to it as well, Coach. Enjoy that hospitality room a little bit. And if you want to join back with us a little bit later on, just give us a call back.
All right. Thank you, guys, and keep up the good work.
See you, Coach.
All right, that's Tulsa High School Coach Rick Marone. Right now, we're going to step aside and take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some Parkersburg South boys basketball. When we come back on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia, here on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
sending us a tweet like Clark, Dave Morrison, Jacob Kilgore. Shout out to all of you. Calvin, Josh Carpenter, Leslie, Keith Flair Nation, Alan Brown, Sap, Nick Hurst, Mason Shook, Trey Ralph, Trey Barker, Tom Hart, Kerry Dotson, Greg Blackburn, Key Flair Nation. Thanks again to all of you tweeting us tonight, sending us scores, and being part of the interactive part of Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Become part of the show. Join us on the phone and share your team's game. Tell us all about it. Call toll-free 1-855-345-4709. 855-345-4709. Tweet the show with your scores at @hoops_roundup. At @hoops_roundup. You can send us a text to 304-249-4924. 304-249-4924. Email your scores to scores@basketballnight.com. Scores@basketballnight.com. Check out our website for all the latest scores, our video stream, and also our audio. Basketballnight.com. Basketballnight.com. Find out all the ways you can connect to our show. Listen online or on great radio stations throughout the tri-state and West Virginia.
Celebrating high school basketball around a mountain state, you're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to your hosts, James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
10:16 on this Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you. Of course, Rick Marone enjoying the hospitality down at the BJM Key Player Shootout down at Tulsa High School with the Lady Rebels, who got a win tonight over Buffalo. Definitely appreciate him calling in tonight as well. We have to get a scoreboard check. We'll do that in a moment. But first, let's go back to the phones. And joining us now is the head coach of the Parkersburg South Patriots boys basketball team, Mike Fallon. Coach, welcome back to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
And, Coach, back into the season. I mean, it's just it seems like we just talked, maybe a couple of weeks ago, but it's been 9 months, and I know that the way your season ended last year in Charleston, a tough loss to a very good Hedgesville team, and what was a really competitive ball game. I know that had to sting a little bit, but now back in with a new group and another, basically, it's another year, another team, and a fresh start.
Yeah, and the thing is, the last 2 years, it's one of those things we've been in Charleston the first round. We've had to lead in the fourth quarter with a couple minutes left in both games, and just not able to get over that hump. And that's the one thing we kind of preached to this group this year. To get down there and get out of that first round. If you can get out of the first round, anything can happen.
And your ball club from a year ago, we talked a lot about the way that they would get up and down the floor. That was a very high-octane type of ball club that scored a lot of points, and we talked about how the matchup and styles for that Hedgesville game was so fascinating going into it. I know you've got some kids back who went through that, and do you think that was a good learning experience, not just from a win-loss standpoint, but just from being able to adjust in the flow of the game?
Oh, definitely. In this group, we even play at even faster pace, this year. We've got kids that get up and down the floor maybe a little bit better, a little more athletic, and we're not near as big, but a little bit quicker and faster. And, we didn't prove it tonight. We shot terrible from the floor in Winterbrook, and that was a tough place to play. It was a dogfight from the beginning, and they were physical with us and everything. But I still think that our style of play is more of an up and down tempo.
Well, Coach, coming back into this season again, early in the year, and you talk about you got that win over Brook tonight, 63-55. So able to grind that one a little bit for your team. A lot of teams don't get into the 60s a lot of nights, but still more of a grind out type game for your ball club. But where do you stand in your opinion? I know it's very early still, but at this point this year compared to maybe a year ago.
I think we're a little bit farther along than we were last year. You kind of look around the state, and everybody's got a lot of kids back, and it's kind of balanced and everything. So I think this year, with our kids, I think we're as good as anybody. But then I think, there's nights even like tonight, we can be beat by anybody. I think we were 2 for 11 from the free throw line in the fourth quarter and didn't put it away and things like that. So I think from that standpoint, we're probably a little bit ahead of where we were last year at this point.
Well, Coach, definitely a tough area to get out of. You're in, you're out. There are no easy regions throughout the state of West Virginia.
Nah.
And that one, yours definitely fits right in with those tough ones.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why we tell our kids, even tonight coming in, every game's so important because we do the home court advantage for our section and everything. And every game's so important on the road. And if you played in our gym's one of the toughest places to play in the state of West Virginia. So we definitely want to try to get home court advantage for that section.
Well, Coach, congratulations on the win tonight, and glad to be back into basketball season. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, very excited. Thank you very much.
All right, that's Mike Fallon, head coach of the Parkersburg South Patriots, as they get the win tonight over Brooke, 63-55. So Parkersburg South gets that win, and James, we let it slip by there a while ago, but we do need another check on our score. James Collier will have that for us right now.
Go straight to the boys' scores. We'll start first with Montcalm, 86-30 over Sherman, picking up the win. It was in the State Farm Tournament. Hedgesville gets past Fort Hill, Maryland, 62-35. Independence knocks off Greenbrier West, 83-69. Fairmont Senior with a big upset over Washington, 82-44. Huntington by 20 over Ironton, 77-57. It was Scott, a 6-point win over Wyoming East, 78-72. Ravenswood gets past Ritchie County, 77-62. Bluefield easily past Princeton, 75-38. Grafton knocks off Philip Barber, 47-34. It was Woodrow Wilson over Oak Hill, 63-47. The Dots left Nitro seeing Dots, 91-57. Your final as Polka picks up the win. Spring Valley over Lincoln County, 54-40. We think so. Jacob Kilgore told us 54. Calvin Hinchman says 53. We'll find out in just a little bit as Jacob Kilgore picks up his 1,000th career point. We'll hear from him as well as Corey Maynard in just a little while. Logan, Liberty Raleigh, that game is still trying to find a final. Last check we had 50-44 end of the third quarter. Independence gets past Greenbrier West, 83-69. It was Mingo Central over Herbert Hoover, 65-58. Greenbrier East over Roanoke Catholic, 94-53. George Washington picks up a win over Belfry, Kentucky, 65-41. It was Chapmanville knocking off Tulsa, 79-36. Buffalo with a win over St. Joe Central, 74-56. Parkersburg South slides past Brooke, 63-55. It was Riverside over St. Albans, 67-42. Lincoln by 12 over Kaiser, 70-58. And Cameron knocks off Bridgeport, Ohio, 68-52. Let's check the girls' scores. Start first with James Monroe. They fall to Pocahontas County, 60-45. It was Jefferson falling to Hampshire, over Hampshire, 52-39. East Hardy and Moorfield. That's a 3-point game. East Hardy over Moorfield, 39-36. Still waiting on a final on that game. Grafton knocks off Clay Battelle, 65-41. It was Calhoun County knocking off Webster County, 52-36. Tug Valley by 50 over Richwood, 60-10. Clay County over Scott, 68-46. Williamstown falls to Wheeling Central Catholic, 67-55. Taylor DuPalga has 16 points. Riley Bennington chips in 15. In the BJM shootout, Tulsa gets past Buffalo, 57-38. Ripley over Winfield, 48-26. It was Ravenswood over Gilmer County, 62-47. Summers County brings the justice to Chapmanville, 78-60. Whitney Justice with 27. Brittany Justice has a double-double, 17 points, 15 boards in the win. Parkersburg, for the first time in 4 years, gets a win over Cabell Midland, 65-41 up in Parkersburg. Woodgrove, Virginia knocks off Martinsburg, 79-45. It was Hurricane over Capital, 63-49. Mary Rogaszewski chipped in a big night, and we'll hear from her in just a little bit. St. Mary's over Tyler Consolidated, 71-37. That's the latest check of your Basketball Friday Night scoreboard update.
Thank you very much, James. And I want to clarify something that I caught there. The George Washington win over Belfry was a girls' game. That was in the BJM shootout down at Tulsa High School. And tomorrow you'll have George Washington against Tulsa. You'll have Buffalo against Belfry, Kentucky. Of course, Belfry, Kentucky, right across the river from Williamson, West Virginia. So it's not too far away. And, football just ended in the Super Six last week. So a lot of schools, a lot of kids are really just now getting into the flow. You have to have 7 basketball practices before you can go if you played football. And so some teams choosing to open up a little bit later on and maybe starting next week or something of that nature. But just wanted to mention something because of 2 names that stuck out tonight. Hedgesville beats Fort Hill, Maryland. Well, Fort Hill, Maryland won the football championship in Maryland for the second straight year. They've won 28 straight games now and 2 straight Maryland 1A state championships. And then Belfry's girls lost to GW. Well, Belfry's football team won the Kentucky 3A state championship over Louisville Central in Bowling Green, Kentucky last week. So,
yeah, it's again we're making that transition, and it's one of those things in West Virginia. You have to have so many practices when you come from one sport to the other until you get ready to go. I believe it's 7 practices that you have to put in if you're moving from football over to basketball. If you did not play or you sat out, then you have to go to 14. So some of those teams still trying to get those practice sessions in, as most of them have them in, unless you're one of those teams that made that run deep into the state tournament. But again, it's early, man. It's December the 12th. This is the opening weekend. And here we are already talking about March. It's crazy how exciting this time of year is. It's almost like Christmas is early, and we're 13 days from Christmas. But that's the excitement of high school basketball. It's like you said, if you've never made the trip to Charleston, do yourself a favor. Go up and pay the fee and go sit and watch these young men and women throw their hearts out on the floor, because, I mean, you will see some spectacular action. Very rarely will you see a game that just gets completely out of hand. It's usually great action, back and forth. It's usually within a 10-point game. It's never one that's completely out of reach, but you get a game that gets into overtime or coming down to the buzzer beater in regulation, the Charleston Civic Center gets very loud, and it is a blast to be a part of every year.
You got the student sections on each
Oh, the
end
student
too.
sections are amazing.
It's a great atmosphere for basketball.
The Crazy Canes, the Polka Dots, those are the 2 that really stick out last year. But I will promise you, if I never hear that silly chant, I believe that we will win one more time. It'll be too soon.
Of course, that was what the U.S. men's national team in soccer adopted for the World Cup, which only revived.
I just brought it back from the dead. It was like it was through basketball, and it had gone away.
Out. Yeah.
It had gone away to rest for at least another year, and then the soccer brought it back, and then it went nationwide, almost worldwide at that point.
We like originality.
Yeah.
So please, you've got some time. March is still about 4 months away.
Keep the roller coaster rides.
I
love that. That is great. That is I'm trying to tell our listeners and people watching at home, if you've never watched 200 students simultaneously act like they're on a roller coaster ride with there's one choreographer, and he stands at the front, and I mean, this is almost as beautiful as synchronized swimming in the Olympics, except for it is high octane, fast paced, crazy, just speed and energy from these students just pouring it out for their team. It is so much fun to watch.
And that is part of the ambience of high school basketball. You got your crowd, you got your student sections. Unfortunately, very rarely now do you have a pep band. But when you have pep bands too, they don't allow them in Charleston. But I know some schools did back when I was growing up. And that always just added to the atmosphere of the arena on a game night. In this case, on a Friday night too, especially when you don't have to worry about going to school the next day. A whole lot of fun as well. But right now, we're going to step aside and we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Corey Maynard, the head coach at Spring Valley, as the Timberwolves get a win tonight. Maybe he'll know the exact final score.
I bet he may know.
I bet he has a better idea than what some of his players do. We'll talk with him when we come back on Basketball Night in West Virginia here on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
If you love basketball, then there's only one place to be. It's Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Shout out to all those people tweeting us tonight. Fred Persinger II. We look forward to hearing from him tonight. Morgan, Lady Bees basketball. Rick Kozlowski, who plans on being here later tonight also. Dave Haynes, key players. Nation, Greg Blackburn, Kerry Dobson, Tom Hart, Greg Dutton, Dave Morrison, Jacob Kilgore, Josh Carpenter, Leslie, Alan Brown, Sam, Nick Hurst, Mason Shook, Trey Rout, Tim Barker, James Barker, Trace Jarrett, at every game, Caitlin Nichols, Dave Morrison, and Matt McVeigh. Thanks for being part of our Twitter family. And if you've got a score, tweet us at @hoops_roundup, at @hoops_roundup. You're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Call us toll-free, 1-855-345-4709, 855-345-4709. Once again, tweet us at @hoops_roundup, at @hoops_roundup. Go to our landing page and find out how you can connect with the show at basketballnight.com. Basketballnight.com. We've got everything there, and all these scores you're hearing tonight, you can log on to our website. We've got them all there just for you. You see a score that's missing, you've got it. Send it to us at @hoops_roundup, at @hoops_roundup. Thanks for being part of the Basketball Friday Night family.
This is high school basketball's home for the Mountain State. Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to Basketball Night in West Virginia with James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
It's 10:32 on this Friday night, Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling and James Collier with you. Rick Marone still enjoying the hospitality room down at Tulsa High School.
I promise you he is enjoying the hospitality room.
And I've been there. The food is amazing.
If there's good food, Marone is involved.
Yes. Yeah, Marone definitely will be there. And one of Coach Marone's fellow coaches within Wayne County is Corey Maynard, the head coach of the boys team at Spring Valley. The Timberwolves get the win tonight over Lincoln County, and Coach Maynard, a big night for Jacob Kilgore.
Yeah, Jacob had a pretty good night. He got to 1,000 points tonight with a 13-point effort for us. He was 10 points away going into the night, and he got his 1,000th point in the fourth quarter this evening.
Coach, when you start things off with a win, going in that first game out, you never know what to expect, especially when you have new faces on the floor, several new faces for this Timberwolves starting five this year. But when you have a guy like Jacob Kilgore to anchor the ship and really take it when you need it, how big is that to have somebody like him out there this year as a senior?
Oh, it's huge. Jacob's been a great player for us, and looking forward to a big year for him. It's always great when you can return your top two scorers like we have this year. We got Jacob Kilgore and Greg Herbert were our two leading scorers last year, so that gets us a start. And we just got to get some more people to contribute and to be involved in our offense.
You lose your point guard for the second time during football season to an ACL. Who's the guy stepping up this year for the Timberwolves that's taking the reins and saying, this is going to be my team?
Well, Jonah Mathis, he's a sophomore. He's running the point for us, and he's doing a good job. He's taking care of the basketball and really stepping up and taking that position.
Coach, tell us one thing that you liked about your team tonight, and one thing that you obviously want to see get better as you start now down the stretch. You finally get that first game out of the way, and now things just kind of start falling together. As you'll have 5-6 games before Christmas.
Yeah, well, one thing, we gave up 40 points tonight, which is not a bad defensive effort. But we just got to get better. We got to get better for used to everybody playing together. We lost three starters from last year's team. We're a little deeper than what we were, and just trying to get everybody used together playing as a unit. As far as one thing that we need to get better on, we need to get more people involved in our offense to score and step up and be a part of the offense. I think everybody looks for they're looking for Jacob and looking for Greg, but the more scores we have step up, the more it's going to open up the floor for them as well.
Coach Maynard, congratulations on your win tonight over Lincoln County, and look forward to hearing from you and the Spring Valley Timberwolves throughout the rest of the season.
All righty, thank you.
All right, that's head coach Corey Maynard at Spring Valley. Moving right along as the phone lines getting a little backed up now, so we're going to
we're starting to wake everyone up again.
We'll keep going right along here. Let's go to a girl who made a big splash tonight in the MSAC, Mary Rogaszewski, freshman for Hurricane, 25 points tonight in Hurricanes win over Capital. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Freshman, first MSAC game and a 25-point effort. First off, though, before we get into that, let's clarify. You are JT's younger sister, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right, because we wanted to make sure it wasn't just like a cousin or something like that. So big win tonight for your ball club, too, against Capital, and having to do so with Abby Watson in foul trouble most of the night. That was a good experience for you guys tonight.
Yeah, it was difficult without her, but we all had to step up and pull through.
Mary, you talk about having to step up. For you as a freshman, you lose your senior leader in Watson with about 4 minutes left to go in the ball game. You have a 12-point lead, but for you, how much did you were forced to grow up tonight as a freshman and lead this team to victory over a very hungry Capital team?
I felt like I had to step up a lot, and I threw a couple balls away, but I knew I had to stick through till the end.
And this is a schedule that's obviously going to not get any easier as the season goes along either. You have a game at Woodrow Wilson coming up a little bit later this week, and next Thursday a home game with Parkersburg, who knocked off Cabell Midland tonight. The MSAC always rugged. Let's go back to your first games. A little over a week ago now, got a win over Charleston Catholic by 10. Charleston Catholic, a good program, and a 10-point win in that one for your team. Now you've beaten Charleston Catholic and Capital back-to-back games to open the season. Kind of put the capital city on notice. All right, Mary, that's Mary Rogaszewski of the Hurricane Lady Redskins. They get the win tonight over Capital. We appreciate her calling in. And, again, just a freshman, 25 points for her tonight. And, yes, she is JT's younger sister. So sometimes sibling rivalries can actually benefit teams in the long run.
Oh, without a doubt, especially when you have two people in the same school. And as we mentioned, JT, a dual athlete, he's known for basketball, what he did last year, but this kid's a phenomenal baseball player. As we mentioned, he's headed to North Carolina as a pitcher. But, yeah, I think we're going to hear the name Rogaszewski quite a bit this year. Learn to spell it. It's like Krzyzewski. If you can spell it, you can use it. But, yeah, for 25 points for a freshman, especially when you lose your senior leader of Abby Watson with 4 minutes to go in a 12-point ball game, that had repercussions that really could have turned ugly quickly, and she stepped up, cool and collect, and led her team to a win.
Well, I know one person at least throughout the state that's going to maybe not worry about it right now because there's a whole lot of other things to worry about.
Oh, he's writing it down right now.
But we'll be paying attention. Yeah, that's the head coach of the Mohegans of Morgantown girls coach Jason White. And Coach White, welcome to the program, and an excellent start to the season for your club. And before we get to that, you just heard us talking there with Mary Rogoshevsky at Hurricane, and they got a big win, and now they have another added dimension. And I guess that's not a team you worry about right now because it's a long way to go, but I kind of have a feeling you keep at least a little bit of information on just about anybody you can come across.
Oh, certainly. And a freshman scoring 25 points, I think, is probably pretty rare in the state of West Virginia. So when a girl steps out and does something like that, you definitely take notice.
Well, Coach White, your team made that incredible run last season and winning the Class AAA state championship. A great win in the title game over Parkersburg South. And that was a classic Class AAA final. You have a lot of people back too. How'd your off season go? And I know your beginning of the season as well, off to a 4-0 start.
Yeah, we're off to a good start. Kids have worked hard in the off season. Got a transfer from the University High in Shelby Boyle, a third-team All-State player. Lost 2 seniors. 2 defensive-minded seniors. So right now we're probably a little bit behind defensively where we were a year ago. Offensively, we're scoring the ball a little bit better. You probably look at our first 4 games and say, Coach, you're averaging 68 a game and giving up 28 a game. So you're averaging winning games by 40 points. How can you say your defense isn't where it was? But we've got a long way to go defensively as a man-to-man team if we want to be able to compete statewide. So I like where we are now as far as 4 games in. But we certainly have a long way to go if we want to be a state contender again.
Coach, when you look back at what you had last year and what you were able to overcome early in the season and make that run into the championship game and cut the nets down, how much do you relay on that? As you said, you lost 2 seniors. You bring a new player into the program. How much do you go back to that of saying, listen, this is a process. It's not a sprint. Just stay to the process, do what we're doing, and we can go back-to-back and try to give ourselves a chance of doing it again.
Well, I think losing 8 games a year ago and still being able to win a state championship as a 6th seed and returning the bulk of those kids. We dressed 13 kids at the state tournament. We returned 11 of those kids. So 11 of those kids understand that, losing games isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all in December and January. It's about learning from those mistakes. You're going to lose games throughout a season, and just taking from those games what you can, and not making those same mistakes again. We lost to a very good Parkersburg South team 3 times a year ago, and we're fortunate enough to beat them in a state championship game. But it's not time to panic when you lose a game. It's just learn from it and go on. And when we get to March, everybody starts over at 0-0, and you begin sectional play, and you just hope you can survive in advance, and we were fortunate enough to do that a year ago. So our kids are pretty humbled right now, and they're playing hard, and we continue to get better night in and night out. So, hopefully, Logan on Friday night will give us a really good test at Logan.
Well, Coach, I thought that it's interesting to talk about. We talked about earlier in the show several Division I signees already throughout the state of West Virginia. You have a committed walk-on, Olivia Segi, going to WVU as a walk-on. She is the heart and soul of that team a year ago in many ways. Is her role changing any at all this year?
No, she is our definite leader of the team. As she goes, we will go. She is a give-it-all kind of kid. She lays her heart out there every night. And as a coach, you can only hope to have one of those type of players once in your career. And I'm fortunate enough to start my career with a player like Liv Segi. Yeah, she's gonna walk on at WVU and fulfill a dream of playing in college. But make no bones about whether she gets a scholarship or not a scholarship. She is a kid that is going to give you every ounce of energy she's got on a given night. And there's not very many point guards around the state that are going to be able to keep up with her pace for 4 quarters. We're going to face, like I said, a Logan team on Friday night with Shayna Gore, who's another Division I player, and she's a heck of a player. And we can only hope that we can kind of contain her a little bit. You're not going to stop a player like her, but what I think is missed in our state is that the level of play of girls basketball. We produce so many Division I players in girls basketball, where boys you might be lucky to get one or two a year, and we're producing 4, 5, 6 a year in girls basketball, and I think that's really missed in our state, and I wish more people could recognize how good the play of girls basketball is in the state of West Virginia.
Hey, all you have to do is look back over the last 10 years or so, and you've had from the state of West Virginia, you've had a girl go to Tennessee and start and end up being the number 4 pick in the WNBA draft and win a national championship, Alexis Hornbuckle. You had Renee Montgomery, who went to UConn, won a national championship, was the number 3 overall pick in the WNBA draft. And while those are special, yeah, there are a lot of girls and a lot of talented girls basketball players in West Virginia. And I think it's a fair argument that could be made that when you go from a state-to-state comparison, that the level of play at the girls' level might be a little bit better than the boys in West Virginia.
Oh, I don't think there's any argument about it. I think you look at us compared to other states and across the country, we're producing just as many Division I players as a lot of other states in this country that are, of our size or bigger in population. And girls basketball in the state of West Virginia is kind of underrated as far as the general public goes, and it's a shame because we've got some really talented girls in the state.
Absolutely agree with you, Coach, and we hope this show can help showcase that a little bit. And we appreciate you joining us. You've been a great contributor last year. We look forward to hearing from you again this year as well.
Hey, anytime, guys. I appreciate what you guys do for girls basketball in the state of West Virginia. You guys do a tremendous job.
Well, we appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's Coach Jason White of the Morgantown Mohegans, the reigning Class AAA girls state champions. Right now, we're going to step aside and take a break. When we come back, we'll get to one of our favorite callers. We're going to hit the Eastern Panhandle up a little bit, learn a little bit more about what's going on out
some
in
wizardry
Berkeley County.
action coming up.
Yeah, we'll talk with Rick Kozlowski when we come back here on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
For scores online, all of them in West Virginia, visit basketballnight.com. Comcast viewers on Channel 25, no audio at the moment. Sorry about that. We're working on it. Thanks to our affiliates, Armstrong Cable, Digital Channel 204, Comcast Channel 25, 106.7 FM WHFI Linside, 101.9 FM WEOW Logan, 90.7 FM WFGH Fort Gay, 98.5 FM and 101.5 FM WQAZ LP Edmond Beckley, 101.7 FM WYAP LP Clay, 88.1 FM WMUL in Huntington. Online video is available at basketballnight.com and rsnsports.com. High school basketball action in West Virginia is heating up as the teams focus on a trip to the state championship in Charleston. Stay up to date with your local teams and their progress all season long with Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia for 3 hours every Friday night from 9 to midnight. Listen online or on great radio stations throughout the Mountain State. A big shout out to Trey, Jacob Kilgore, John, Michael Minich, Wheeling Park GBB, Big Papa, who might be related to Big Daddy, and Dave Haynes. They're all tweeting us tonight here at basketballfridaynight.com. You can tweet us at @hoops_roundup, at @hoops_roundup. We'd love to hear from you. Once again, this is basketballnight.com. Call and be part of the show. Call toll free 1-855-345-4709. You're listening to Basketball Friday Night in the Mountain State. Now back to Ryan Epling, Rick Marone, and Rudy Raines on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia.
10:48 on this Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling and the forgotten James Collier joining us here.
That's okay. I'm easily forgotten. That's man, it's hard to forget me. I feel like I'm the Rick Marone over here, but I'm actually just a person in a body. I don't know. That hurts.
Sometimes
that hurt, Fred.
Yeah. Our opening voice are a little bit rough on you, but nonetheless, we'll get into the scoreboard in just a moment. I know we've got to get a scoreboard update here coming up soon, but before we do that, let's go to Rick Kozlowski, who is with the Martinsburg Journal, and he joins us now. And Rick, welcome to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. We're back into the swing of things with boys and girls basketball underway in the Mountain State.
Indeed. And glad to hear I'm getting a pay raise.
Your agent did negotiate really well right before we had this. We're able to get you on, and I know you held out, but we appreciate it.
It was a stiff holdout too.
It was
a crazy negotiation.
It was a tough negotiation, especially live while we're doing the show. But we made it work. Rick's with us now. Rick, Eastern Panhandle. A year ago, Washington was the team to beat out of there when undefeated. And through the regular season, got to the state semifinals, got beat in an excellent basketball game by a really good Huntington team in a game that you could play that 10 times and probably would have split 5-5 or maybe even 6-4 one way or the other. But regardless, Washington was ranked number 4 in the preseason poll by the Associated Press in Class AAA tonight. That might have been on reputation because tonight – they took one on the chin at Fairmont Senior, losing by 38.
And I think there's going to be a lot of that this year, to be honest. I think it did go on reputation where they got picked as highly as they did. I think when you look at the AAA teams in the Eastern Panhandle, they might be the number 7 team, which is 7 out of 7. They're really in a real rebuilding mode. Lost their top 6 players, 5 double-figure scorers, and really starting from scratch again. New coach too.
And Martinsburg, I know, had a young team a year ago. Hedgesville got a nice win tonight over Fort Hill, Maryland. As you said, perhaps Washington the 7th best out of 7. Who are you looking at in those top 2 that have a shot to get to Charleston?
Well, I think number 1 is Jefferson. They have pretty much their first 9 players back from last year, including a couple of dynamite scorers in Jaleel Jenkins and Jerron Smith, except I'm getting that first name wrong. Jalen Smith. And then I'm looking at probably Martinsburg, which is still going to be a young team. Still a lot of underclassmen on that team, but it's a talented bunch. They're going to play a lot of sophomores, kids who have played together and put together a pair of undefeated seasons in the middle school level of play before moving up to high school. And then kind of the one that we wait to see is Hedgesville. Hedgesville right now is playing without 4 of its projected top 6 players, including a player who was a Division I prospect, Daniel Delaware. He broke his leg in a scrimmage last week, and in all likelihood, he's done for the season. And to continue on, he'll probably have to wind up going to a prep school like a couple other players around here have done, and have done quite well, going that route. And then from there, I think you're looking at a Hampshire, which has 3 starters back for new coach Ori Pancione, who's an alumnus of Hampshire, an outstanding player while he was there. And when they have Travis Clower, who scored 26-plus points per game last year, and his coach tells me he's a much more well-rounded basketball player. He's not just a shooter that he had been for the last couple of years. Beyond that, Musselman is kind of rebuilding, and then you have Spring Mills, which has everybody back. Of course, no, they didn't have a senior class last year, so that kind of helps them have everybody back. They played a game last. Well, they're 1-1 so far, and they actually had an NBA player attend their game last night. Guy from the Clippers came to the game. What was his name? Reggie Bullock was at Spring Mills game last night. They're playing the Wizards tonight, or played the Wizards tonight, but he, for whatever reason, came up to the Panhandle and watched a high school basketball game.
Well, that's something that I think probably doesn't happen too often. An NBA player who doesn't necessarily have a direct tie to a spot in our state, just kind of showing up. Of course, I think maybe perhaps a lot of people throughout the central portion of West Virginia may not realize how much the D.C. metro area has grown, and that the Eastern Panhandle is part of the D.C. metro area now, basically.
Well, that is true. That is true. And, we're only talking about an hour and a half away, and the number of people in Berkeley and Jefferson counties who commute to Washington, D.C. on a daily basis to work is just phenomenal.
Well, Rick, we certainly look forward to once we get into the meat of the schedule and start to sort some things out up there. I know it was an exciting year up there a year ago for basketball in terms of the level of play of Washington and the storyline of could they go undefeated. And of course, we know they're in total rebuilding mode. But as you mentioned, looking forward to seeing how Jefferson, Martinsburg, and all those guys play out this year. And on the girls' side, Martinsburg was pretty good a year ago. Anybody stand out up there to you right now at this point?
I think Martinsburg is probably the team to beat. Forgive me for not really knowing about girls. I'm kind of stuck between football and basketball, boys basketball right now. But the Morgantown coach brought up a good point, and this is something I've been saying for years. There have been over time, and I've been around here a long time. Not to give away any age or anything, but almost 30 years I've been in West Virginia, and over those 30 years I've seen many, many more Division I girls basketball players than I have seen among the boys.
Yeah, it's
so it's kind of an interesting thing, and it's not a recent development, or even last 10 years. It's been going on even back when West Virginia was playing basketball in the fall. You guys are probably too young to remember that.
No, I remember that vaguely, but I do remember that ended in the mid-'90s, if I'm not mistaken. So that hasn't been
somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's been about 20 years now, roughly, of the boys and girls playing in the same season. And that really opened the door for volleyball to take off in the state of West Virginia in the fall as well. But Rick, certainly, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there again. I know you're just off Super 6 weekend last week and jumping right in feet first or head first, however you want to put it, with basketball.
Or doing backflips, right, James?
Oh, absolutely, doing backflips. I mean, you say you're the Wizard of Oz, so. The Wizard of Oz, every time he graced Busch Stadium in St. Louis, he did a backflip all the way to shortstop. So we expect a backflip at least sometime this year.
Hey, I know you guys are kind of pushing me aside, but I got one more thing for you.
All right.
No, and of course, you guys being down there in Marshall country, are you any of you guys Seinfeld, the sitcom fans?
Oh. Big-time Seinfeld fan right here.
Okay. Well, have you ever seen on Twitter something called Seinfeld Today or Modern Seinfeld?
Yes.
Okay, well, I have one. And I offered to them, and I haven't heard back. But here we go. Kramer got himself some tickets to a new college bowl game. So off to Del Boca Vista he went, only to discover the game was actually in Boca Raton. They lied, Jerry, they lied.
Rick Kozlowski, always ending on a high note. Definitely a walk-off right there, Rick. Thanks so much for joining us, Rick, from the Martinsburg Journal. And before we go to break, and again, we'll get a scoreboard. We'll hear from Michael Minich with the Mineral County Times in just a moment as well. We got to go to Fred Persinger II, the voice of the Woodrow Wilson Flying Eagles. They pick up a win tonight over Oak Hill, a nice win for Woodrow tonight.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the Beckley Flying Eagles, a new look this year. A lot of guys that not familiar with playing, but they are up. They won 63-47 tonight. Balanced attack for Beckley. They put 4 players in double figures, so it was a good win for this young ball club.
All right, so help us out here for a lot of folks who are, again, just now getting into the swing of things with basketball. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a pretty significant maneuvering of student athletes to Greater Beckley Christian this year again, right?
Yeah, there's about 4 kids that if they would have stayed at Beckley would have been playing for this year's team, but they're at Greater Beckley Christian School. And then the other big loss that Beckley had as well is the fact that Naquan Carrington moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So Beckley did lose a lot coming back, of course, with all the seniors they lost last year as well. So Beckley only had 3 players that are coming back. There are actually 4 players that saw some significant varsity time with Corey Akert and also Brent Osborne, who didn't play tonight because he's still injured from football season, Noah Hancock, and also Tariq Payne. Those 4 players played a lot last year, but outside of that, Beckley's playing a lot of young guys, and those young guys led the Flying Eagles in their game tonight.
A win tonight over Oak Hill, 63-47 in the season opener for the Flying Eagles. And as is typical of Woodrow Wilson in years past, in early season, kind of take a little bit of a break now, regroup, play Nitro coming up next Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to, when you look at Beckley's schedule coming up and being this young ball club that will play 4 or 5 sophomores and probably at some point in the season bring up some really talented freshmen that will be coming up as well. But when you look at their schedule, they'll play Wednesday night against Nitro at home. That game will be played at the high school. And then a week from Monday night on December the 22nd, we'll welcome Huntington to the Raleigh County Convention Center. And then we go on the road after that game against Huntington. 5 of the next 7 games are on the road for Beckley. So it is a good early season test for this young team to see how they grow, playing in some tough places and getting better. But no doubt about Beckley will be a lot better at the end of the season than what they are right now. They turned the ball over 24 times tonight. There was 50-some fouls called between the 2 teams tonight as well. So it was a sloppy game. But once again, Beckley was able to come out with a win, and I think that's very big for this young ball club.
Fred Persinger II, voice of the Flying Eagles. Thank you so much for joining us here on Basketball Friday Night, and we look forward to hearing from you again all throughout this season.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. We're going to stay right here. And, James, before we get to Michael Minich, who's been so good to stay on hold for us, and we'll get to him in just a moment. But right now, top of the hour, we need to check the scoreboard.
Let's go ahead and do it then.
Let's get a check of the scoreboard.
Well, we've started on the boys' side. Let's start on the girls this time through. A lot of games starting to really sift in as we'll start our first ever score that we translated from the new website out to the world of Twitter. Pocahontas County, 15-point win over James Monroe, 60-45. It was Jefferson over Hampshire, 52-39. George Washington knocks off Belfry, Kentucky, 65-41 in the BJM shootout. They'll play Tulsa tomorrow in the finals. East Hardy by 3 over Moorfield, 39-36. It was Grafton knocking off Clay Battelle, 65-41. Oak Glen with a 3-point win over Cameron, 58-55. Calhoun County knocks off Webster County, 52-36. Tug Valley eases past Richwood, 60-10. Clay County over Scott, 68-46. It was Wheeling Central Catholic over Williamstown, 67-55. Taylor DuPagla, 16 points. Riley Bennington, 15 points in the win. We mentioned the BJM shootout. It's Tulsa that will face off against GW tomorrow after a 57-38 win over Buffalo. St. Albans gets past Riverside. Ripley knocks off Winfield, 48-26. Gilmer County falls to Ravenswood 62-47. Preston knocks off Elkins 64-37. In the matchup between Summers County and Chapmanville, Justice was served in a 78-60 win by the Bobcats. Whitney Justice nets 27 points as Brittany Justice puts in a double-double, 17 points and 15 rebounds in the win. Parkersburg snaps a 4-year losing streak to Cabell Midland. 65-51, Parkersburg knocks off the Knights. It was Woodgrove, Virginia over Martinsburg, 79-45. Hurricane, led by Mary Rogaszewski's 25 points, 63-49. The Redskins pass the Cougars. St. Mary's knocks off Tyler Consolidated, 71-37. Let's go to the boys' side now, as Sherman knocks off Montcalm, 86-30. Hedgesville in the State Farm tourney knocks off Fort Hill, Maryland, 62-35. It was Ritchie County over Ravenswood, 77-62. Independence with a big win over Greenbrier West, 83-69. Fairmont Senior knocks off AAA Washington, 81-44. As that will send a notice around the state. West Virginia, Huntington by 20 over Ironton, 77-57. Scott gets past Wyoming East, 78-72. It was Tug Valley over Richwood, 60-43. Ravenswood victorious over Ritchie County, 77-62. It was Bluefield, the Beavers, getting past Princeton, 75-38. Grafton by 13 over Philip Barber, 47-34. Woodrow Wilson victorious over Oak Hill, 63-47. Nitro making it light up on the scoreboard. 91 points for the Dots tonight and a 91-57 win over Nitro. Morgantown falls to Briarwoods 64-61 in the Gold's Gym Hoop Fest. And it was Logan over Liberty Raleigh 68-59. Lincoln knocks off Kaiser 70-58. Mingo Central defeats Herbert Hoover 65-58. Greenbrier East 94, Roanoke Catholic 53. Charleston Catholic by 10 over Parkersburg Catholic 55-45. Chapmanville knocks off Tulsa 79-36. It was St. Joe Central over Buffalo 74-56. Parkersburg South defeats Brooke 63-55. Spring Valley picks up a opening season win over Lincoln County 53-40, in which Jacob Kilgore nets his 1,000th career point. Riverside eases past St. Albans 67-42. And Cameron knocks off Bridgeport, Ohio 68-52. That's a check of your Basketball Friday Night scoreboard update.
Thank you very much, James. One of the scores you mentioned was Lincoln defeating Kaiser. Michael Minich was at that ball game, and we've got Michael with us now. Thank you for holding for so long. I know we kind of left you hanging there for a little bit, but we appreciate you sticking with us, Michael.
Not a problem. I've done enough radio myself to know that that's the way of things sometimes, that you have to hurry up and wait.
Mineral Daily News Tribune writer and the sports editor, I should say. And, boy, tough loss tonight for Kaiser, a game in which they had the lead going into the fourth quarter, but Lincoln a 14-0 run late to put them away.
Yeah, like you said, it was one of those games where both teams just kept going on runs, 7-0, 8-2. 10-2, and then finally Lincoln, like you said, scored the final 14 points. And that's something that I really wanted to see out of Kaiser this year was, could they finish games? Last year, had a lead going in the fourth quarter in the regional championship game against Bridgeport, lost that game, didn't go to Charleston. So it's not good for Kaiser to see this tonight where you're playing a team that you could conceivably see in the regional final. Lincoln's going to have to get by RC against Bridgeport, but to have a lead, 4 minutes left, and lose by 12, not good.
A tough loss there for Kaiser. And, again, early in the season, these games sometimes are very hard to get a handle on, and sometimes a quarter can get away from you in a game in which, as you said, you were there. That game could go any direction if they play again. So just because there's a 12-point differential doesn't really mean a whole lot at this point.
Sure, and Kaiser looked great in their opener. They played Fort Hill, who, like you said earlier, played Hedgesville tonight, and looked fantastic. Got a 15-0 lead right off the bat, won that game by 28 points. So, some nights you're good, some nights you're not, but, for Kaiser, I think if they can fix those issues late game to kind of decide who their best players are, who they need to get the ball to in the right situation, they're a team that could conceivably go to Charleston. A lot of guys back from that team that was sectional champs and regional finalists last year.
Well, Michael Minch, I know you understand how radio works. I've got to take a break now. So hurry up, wait, and then go away, right?
That's right.
No, hey, greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep, thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to step aside and take a break. We'll come back with more basketball Friday night in West Virginia after this.
Basketball Friday night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Tonight, we welcome all our newest affiliates here at Basketball Friday night in West Virginia. WHFI, Linside 106.7 FM, voice of the James Monroe Mavericks. And our friends at WBLW Logan 101.9 FM and 1290 AM. WFGH Fort Gay 90.7 FM, voice of the Tulsa Rebels, Spring Valley Timberwolves, and the Wayne Pioneers. WQAZ-LP Edmond Fayetteville 98.5 FM and 101.5 FM Beckley, voice of the Fayetteville Pirates, Oak Hill Red Devils, Valley Fayette Greyhounds, Meadowbridge Wildcats, and the Midland Trail Patriots. WYAB-LP in Clay, 101.7 FM official voice of the Clay County Panthers, Marshall University, and 88.1 FM WNL in Huntington, voice of the Thundering Herd. Check out basketballnight.com where you can listen online and you can watch our high-definition video stream. Thanks again to rsnsports.com for carrying video stream tonight too. And if you're a Comcast cable subscriber, our audio is not working. Sorry about that. If you're on Armstrong Cable, tune in to channel 204. A shout out to the people tweeting us tonight. Marie, Mark Zinn, Rachel, Michael, George Watson, Folks, Jay Wizard 30, Jacob Kilgore, John, Wheeling Park, GBB, Clark, Dave Morrison, Calvin, and Leslie. Follow us on Twitter at @hoops_roundup.
This is Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Heard statewide on great radio stations. Visit basketballnight.com to find the station nearest you. Online video provided by rsnsports.com. Get all the scores all the time on Twitter @hoops_roundup. Now back to the hosts of Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. James Collier, Rick Marone, Rudy Raines, and Ryan Epling.
11-12 on this Basketball Friday night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you. We're going to have to try to work on getting Rudy Raines back on the show at some point.
I was going to say it was kind of like Rick Kozlowski, Where's Waldo?
Right.
It's maybe like a...
Where's Rudy?
Yeah, it's like an Easter egg hunt or something.
Because to me, the one of the better segments last year was what did Rudy learn at the end?
Yeah, and that was always a scary segment.
Because we had no idea where
where it was going. I mean, It was like throw it up and just good luck what comes back.
Well, and so somebody else that you can just kind of lob the ball down into the post to and see what happens is Rick Marone. Rick's back with us. Rick, I'm sure the hospitality room, good as always down there tonight, down at Tulsa High School, where your ball club was able to get a win tonight in the BJM key player shootout. And Coach, I know you've been listening to the program throughout most of the night. Any of those scores that we've been going through surprise you tonight?
I'll tell you what, Ryan, it's a great night. As you mentioned, boys basketball kicking off, and you saw some great matchups tonight right out of the blocks. And I tell you, some of those scores, when you look at the Wyoming East and Scott, Mingo Central, a lot expected out of them this year. Some new faces there with the Miners. And then you go cross river battles with Huntington and Ironton. I mean, I'll tell you what, amazing matchups here early. And then the Polka score kind of jumps out at you. The beat goes on. The Dots, of course, runner-up last year to Bluefield in Class AA. A lot expected out of Alan Osborne and his crew. So, tell you what, boys basketball hit the ground running tonight. Girls winding down week 2, but it's a great time.
Well, Coach, let's take a little bit of time here to talk more about some of the girls basketball teams that are in the region that you share at Tulsa High School. I know you've already played Mingo Central, lost to them. You got to see Wayne in person. Wayne has lost to Chapmanville Regional and beaten Tug Valley under new coach Wade Williamson, and that's a Wayne ball club that looks to be improved.
Yeah, I tell you what, Wayne is probably one of the most improved teams that I have seen. Wade Williamson doing a great job there. They've got one of the most impressive freshmen, Ariel Adkins, really leading that team, and I think big things expected from them. But, Ryan, I think in our region, which is Region 4 in Class AA, I think you start with Sissonville. I mean, they were Class AA runner-up last year. They returned 2 All-State guards in Carly Pinkerton and Madison Jones. Coach Skeens does a great job with them. Polka is going to be a quality team, and then our section is going to be a dogfight. I think Wayne, hopefully us, Mingo Central is very strong, Scott and Chapmanville. So it's going to be a great time in Class AA in our region. But, again, I think everybody's shooting for Sissonville, and then the county's also much improved this year as well in the other half.
And there's also a little team called Westside down there that's still pretty good too.
Yeah, I tell you what, Ryan, I'm going to kind of throw it out there early. I know some of the personnel, Wyoming East, is really going to make some noise in that region. I think when you think about that region with Wyoming East, West Side, Summers County, and Pikeview, in girls basketball, only 2 of them teams come out. Wyoming East has got some of the best young players that have rolled through that area in a while. I think a lot is going to be heard from Gabby Lapardis. She's her point guard. They have been rolling people here in the early part of the season. And I think Wyoming East is probably, in my mind, going to be one of those teams that could be a dark horse coming out of that region, which means somebody's going to be odd man out.
We talked about this a little bit with Coach White at Morgantown about the overall girls basketball talent. Rick Kozlowski talked about it from Martinsburg, too, in terms of from his coverage time, many more players going Division I on the girls' side than on the boys' side. And it's not just about going to Division I, but Coach Marone, you've seen this for years as well. The state tournament on the girls' side is generally competitive. Every now and then you get a team that will just run away from everybody, but it's generally a very competitive tournament. But the regions are deep. You were talking about that. You were kind of touching on that. That's not a new phenomenon. You could almost select 2 other teams out of the region, and they would go and compete almost as well as the 2 that do get out.
Yeah, I think I'm with Coach White and yourself. Girls basketball is as deep in West Virginia. You know, when you look at the number of players as any other state around, and I think the teams are very deep, and I think it makes it exciting. I mean, it makes for exciting tournament time, and you know, the quality of players that are going to the next level is just amazing. You know, we've got an opportunity here on the 22nd of the retiring a jersey and a number for Kara Pollinger, one of our former players that just finished up at the Naval Academy, Division I, and she's now in the Navy, and she'll be in on leave, and we're going to have that ceremony prior to our Chapmanville game on the 22nd. So, you know, we've had fortunate to have several D1 players as well as D2 and NAIAs. We've got a couple players at UPike this year, Alice Lloyd. I mean, we've been very blessed, but girls basketball is alive and well in West Virginia, and I think folks should get out and enjoy it. It's a great brand of basketball.
And it can present some opportunities education-wise beyond high school, too, that, you know, let's be honest, West Virginia, there's a lot of folks out there who have a tough time getting by, and anytime you can get help getting a college education and getting a little bit of help from a scholarship, definitely worth the time and effort.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ryan. I think you look at the opportunities that open up. I'm a firm believer, I know you are as well, that education is the best bridge to a future. And, you know, we preach it, hear it, but, you know, basketball can be a part of that. And there are levels to play if you have a love of the game. And, and you've got to have the skill level, but it's about commitment. And I think West Virginia's been blessed. We've been a little bit spoiled when you got WNBA players, when you can turn the TV on and watch Notre Dame and Michael Johnson leading them, and then, you know, Griffin Dempsey over in North Carolina. I mean, Charlotte. I mean, it's just those are just two off the top of my head. But I mean, you know, it's amazing the girls that have went on and are playing at the next level. And I think sometimes. I think our show does a great job of keeping in touch with them, Ryan, but I think sometimes they kind of fall off the radar, and we should really lift them up, and those could be role models for young girls coming up through the sport.
And again, I'll just point this out. We've got to take a break here, but I'll just point this out. I was at a regional championship game in 2002, 2003, and so it's been spring of 2003, when South Charleston and Nitro played a girls basketball game in front of 7,000 people at the Charleston Civic Center in the regional final, that had Meg Withrow, who went Division I from Nitro, had Tara Hammond, who went Division I from Nitro, had Keisha Tyler, who went Division I from Nitro, against South Charleston, who had Alexis Hornbuckle, Renee Montgomery. And that was a ball game that went right down the wire as well. And while you may not get that every year, and that concentrated of talent, the talent level is out there, and definitely is out there. And hey, we've talked a lot about the girls' side of things, but the boys' teams also. You've got Brandon Napper at South Charleston, Chase Harler at Wheeling Central, who are two juniors who are committed to WVU and had multiple offers otherwise. So definitely a good season to look forward to. Coach, we're going to step aside and take a break though right now. Stay with us out there, all right? This is back.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
For scores online, all of them in West Virginia, visit basketballnight.com. We want to thank all our affiliates, all the radio stations, TV stations, and online groups that are broadcasting us tonight. We appreciate that. Everybody that has tweeted us and retweeted us. Big shout out to Harley Bush, Key Player Nation, Kelly Zen Cooper, Wheeling Park Basketball, Tom Roten, John Sissy Barker, John Allen, J.R. Van Hoos, Rick Kozlowski, who was on earlier, Mr. Kelly, Jason White, J.R. Van Hoos, Cliff Stowers, who is a new follower tonight. Thank you for following us. Amy LaRose, and of course Fred Persinger II, who was on earlier also. High school basketball action in West Virginia is heating up as the teams focus on their trip to the state championship in Charleston. Stay up to date with your local team and its progress all season long with Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia for 3 hours every Friday night from 9 p.m. to midnight. Listen online or on great radio stations throughout the Mountain State. Hear sports writers, broadcasters, coaches, players, and your calls recapping your team's game. Visit basketballnight.com for more details on how you can be part of the show. Follow us on Twitter @hoops_roundup. @hoops_roundup. Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia, your one-stop shop for all things in West Virginia high school basketball. Go to our website, basketballnight.com. You can check out all the scores, and yes, we've got them all. You can call, tweet, text, email. Go to our website, find out how to connect with us. Call toll-free 855-345-4709.
Stay up to date on your favorite teams. Check out basketballnight.com. Now, back to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia with Coach Rick Marone, James Collier, Rudy Raines, and Ryan Epling.
11:23 on this Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you as, well, you know, you look up and we're almost 2.5 hours into this show, and we're starting to head down the backstretch here before long.
Yeah, I was talking with someone earlier this week about the show and kind of the way that it works and everything. And I said it's one of those things that you start off and it's overwhelming to begin. And you blink your eye and we're doing our final scoreboard update and getting ready to finish the thing out for the first night. But it's one of those growing learning curves that we go through. And certainly to look back in time just 365 days ago, where we were then and where we are now. It's some minor hiccups along the way, but definitely still a great cast and crew of everything that we're putting out. Us a great product, trying to make sure that we get everything out there. And again, we're not perfect. And if you see that a mistake has been made, we're all human. Shoot us a message on Twitter or give us a call. Just let us know. Say, hey, maybe a score was transposed or a key was accidentally typed when it shouldn't have been. But our goal is that we want to get every single score out perfectly.
Yeah, you don't hurt our feelings.
We make mistakes,
right.
and the thing of it is that this show does not work without the listeners, without the support of everybody, because this is not a show that's based to just cover Huntington. It's not based to just cover Charleston. It's statewide. We want everybody. That's why we have guys like Kaz up in the Eastern Panhandle.
He's 6 hours away.
Yeah, we almost have to change time zones to get him on the show, but. And then we go to Fred Persinger down in Beckley and everything in between. And that's the great part of the show, is that it's statewide. We want everybody to have an opportunity. We reached out this morning trying to get Washington head coach into the show. Left a message for the Washington athletic director with no response. But the attempts were made. That's what we try to do, and it's a growing process week in and week out, and certainly. So far, it kind of seems like we're right back in the saddle after last year. It was a work in progress, and that, like you said, you get to those last 3-4 shows, and it was like, yeah, let's go.
We got this.
We got this, and it's starting to feel that way once again. We got a lot of new faces that are trying to learn and work, and they're doing a fabulous job. Hats off to everybody of the crew tonight, and hats off to everybody that's jumped on the phone lines and or hit us up on Twitter, hoops_roundup with scores. Or we had a couple of mistakes at the beginning. They said, hey, you flip that. And, it's one of those things. The first one that said it, he said, hey, flip that score. And I was like, my apologies. We've got it fixed. And he said, oh, no. He said, we appreciate everything that this program does for the state of West Virginia. And, we heard from several callers that talked about, including Jason White, the head coach for Morgantown. That's why we do this show. It's to get the information out there, because it was always something that, Ryan, you and I talked many times prior to last year. This is something that's needed. How do we make it happen? And when Fred Dameron woke up one morning and said, I have an idea, and that's usually scary. But we had the right people in place for an idea to become a reality. And now here we are, an anniversary later, and growing and exponentially by the day.
And also, it wouldn't be possible without Marshall University's help in allowing us to use the facilities here. And
this back here is pretty awesome.
This is neat. I mean, again, I hope if you get a chance, check out basketballnight.com. I don't know how you're listening to us tonight. There are so many ways. That's another thing too. Check out the website. We've got an affiliates list there. You can pick us up in Beckley, Clay, Fayetteville, Logan, Parkersburg, Spencer, Wheeling. Coming soon. We're working on that.
And the other side too is
there.
If you want to see two faces made for radio, you can also see us there as well. And I don't know that that's a good thing to see, but hey, it's an option that we have. But it's funny thing about the new backdrop for the set. Braxton Crisp, one of our directors, he was working in the studio earlier today, and about 15 minutes after 4, he comes like a whirlwind up the stairs into the MUL studios. He says, I got to go. This backdrops are ready. I got to go. They're closing at 5. And I was like, my goodness, and I thought I talked fast. This guy was gone. I don't know if his feet touched the floor. And then I kept waiting, and I was like, is he ever coming back? And then I get a text message, and it's finished. And I was like, oh, my God, that is fabulous. But, it's definitely, as you point out, thanks to Marshall University for everything and all the people behind, including one Mike Stanley, the man. He is the legend. He is the mastermind that puts all of the pieces together that gets us from one level of the building to the other.
Yeah, we're on different floors.
Yeah, we're on different floors
than
now.
what we were last year.
I was kidding everybody before the show started. I said, I'm going to put one of those Hero cameras on my head and watch about an hour prior to the show of how many trips up and down this set of stairs that we have to make getting everything ready to go. But my goodness, it's hard to believe this is where we are, but it's definitely a great place and where we want to be. And we're definitely not going to settle for this.
Mike Stanley, who when I first started at Marshall and he works at WMUL and was there, at the time, and he had acquired the nickname the Hamlin Hammer from.
He's still the Hammer.
He's now just shortened to the Hammer. But,
he doesn't need anything else, just the Hammer.
Right, and you know, we couldn't do it without him, and of course, again with Marshall University, Dr. Chuck Bailey at WMUL. Yes, I did just say W. Sorry, Dr. Bailey. WMUL.
That's all right. He gets you every time you say there's a timeout on the floor too. So.
I know. Yeah, doing public address for Marshall women's basketball. Yes, and I always, you know, if he's there, I actually change the wording if I see him, just when he's there. But nonetheless, too. Professor or Janet Dooley, who's the dean of the journalism department at Marshall now, and again allowing us to use this. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's a unique opportunity. It's where the worlds of radio and television meet in kind of some form or fashion, and typically that doesn't work seamlessly. But so far, outside of a few bumps along the road, including one that's not even anything that we can fix, that we sent our apologies out to our Comcast viewers, it's definitely seemed to be working well. Pretty good.
Yeah, we're, again, work in progress, and we know you're here to listen to the scores, and we'll have a scoreboard update right after this break. This is Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
If you love basketball, then there's only one place to be. It's Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Shout out to all the people tweeting us tonight. Thank you for that and sending us scores. That includes Jack Withrow, Judy Daniel, Amy LaRose. We really want to thank Harris Signs tonight because if you look at those banners, those beautiful signs behind our host, made by Harris Signs. Thank you, Harris Signs, for supporting Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. We want you to become part of the show. There's still time. Go to our website to find out all the ways to connect with us. You can call us toll-free, 1-855-345-4709, 855-345-4709. Tweet us. Join us on Twitter, @Hoops_Roundup, @Hoops_Roundup. High school basketball action in West Virginia. It's heating up as the teams focus on their trip to Charleston, and we're following every team in West Virginia in one place. You can find all the scores on our website, basketballnight.com. Every Friday night from 9 to midnight, we're the home for high school basketball in West Virginia. Listen online at basketballnight.com with any computer or mobile device or on great radio stations throughout West Virginia. Watch the live video stream also at basketballnight.com or rsnsports.com. Just click on watch the video. Follow us on Twitter @Hoops_Roundup, @Hoops_Roundup. Basketball Friday night in West Virginia.
Stay up to date on your favorite teams. Check out basketballnight.com. Now, back to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia with Coach Rick Marone, James Collier, Rudy Raines, and Ryan Epling.
32 on this Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Ryan Epling, James Collier with you. Working at half staff tonight, so to speak, as Coach Marone down at Tulsa High School. He had a game.
We're 2/3.
Yeah, well, you're right, because Rudy Raines, haven't heard from her.
She's kind of like Echo. We know it's out there, but it's kind of Rudy. Until we get Rudy in touch with her, she's kind of like the old phrase: "If a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to see it, did it actually make a noise?"
That's a good point.
Cause would like that.
He would.
Cause would appreciate that. I hope Cause still has us tuned in because he will totally enjoy stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is the crazy stuff that Cause loves.
Yeah, anytime you get a writer, especially the writers are, they're the ones who are kind of the lifeblood, so to speak, of getting information out. Even in this technology age, newspapers are still a big thing. We're not competing with anybody.
Oh,
This is
gosh,
we're
no.
doing our own thing right here, and
we're the
and they help.
epicenter of technology at its best, and like you said, we need everything to make this work.
Right, and so definitely thanks to all those people who help out, and they get us scores, and we get them to you. And James, let's get another check of the scoreboard.
Scores as simple as a layup. Let's go to the boys' side. We'll start with some new scores just rolling in. Edison Local, Ohio, 4-point winner over Weir, 67-63. In the Fairmont Senior Tournament, it's University getting a win over Southern Garrett, 52-44. Sherman knocks off Montcalm, 86-30. In the State Farm Tournament, Hedgesville knocks off Fort Hill, Maryland, 62-35. It's Ritchie County 77, Ravenswood 62. Independence knocks off Greenbrier West, 85-69. It's Fairmont Senior knocking off AAA Washington, 81-44. That's a Washington team that was averaging 102 points after its first two contests. Huntington goes to Ironton. Huntington comes home a winner, 77-57. Winner over the Tigers as Huntington picks up the big win to start its season. Scott, 6-point win over Wyoming East, 78-72. Wahama and Trimble, Ohio, has been postponed. We'll get an information out on that one when it's been rescheduled as soon as we receive the information. Tug Valley, 17-point win over Richwood, 60-43. Ravenswood knocks off Ritchie County, 77-62. A final from yesterday, it was Bluefield over Princeton, 75-38. Grafton, 13-point win over Philip Barber, 47-34. It was Woodrow Wilson victorious over Oak Hill, 63-47. Polka, no problem with Nitro, 91-57. The Dots move victoriously. Morgantown falls to Briarwoods, 64-61. That's in the Gold's Gym Hoop Fest. Logan knocks off Liberty Raleigh, 68-59. Lincoln defeats Kaiser, 70-58. That's in the Petersburg tournament. Independence over Greenbrier West, 83-69. It was Mingo Central defeating Herbert Hoover, 65-58. Greenbrier East over Roanoke Catholic, 94-53. Charleston Catholic over Parkersburg Catholic, 55-45. Chapmanville eases past Tulsa, 79-36. It was St. Joe Central over Buffalo, 74-56. Parkersburg South, a winner over Brooks, 63-55. Spring Valley gets the win, open up the season over Lincoln County, 53-40. Jacob Kilgore drops in career point 1,000 in the win for Corey Maynard. Riverside eases past St. Albans, 67-42. It was Parkersburg Christian over Hannon, 62-60. Cameron knocks off Bridgeport, Ohio, 68-52. And Moorfield over Pendleton County, 55-42. On the girls' side of things, Pocahontas County 60-45 win over James Monroe. It was Jefferson over Hampshire, 52-39. George Washington moves into the finals of the BJM Shootout with a 65-41 win over Belfry, Kentucky. East Hardy by 3 over Moorfield, 39-36. Grafton, easy win over Clay Battelle, 65-41. Oak Glen with a 3-ball over Cameron, 58-55 your final. Calhoun County knocks off Webster County, 52-36. Tug Valley hangs a 60 spot in a 50-point win over Richwood, 60-10. Clay County over Scott, 68-46. Wheeling Central Catholic has a 12-point win over Williamstown, in which Taylor DuPogla has 16 points. Riley Bennington, 15 points for the win. Speaking of the BJM Shootout, it'll be Tulsa that'll face GW after the Running Rebels knock off Buffalo, 57-38. St. Albans all over Riverside, 90-18. Your final. Ripley over Winfield, 48-26. North Marion knocks off Hedgesville, 87-14. Ravenswood over Gilmer County, 62-47. It was Fayetteville over Greenbrier West, 44-27. Preston defeats Elkins, 64-37. Summers County, 18-point win over Chapmanville. Whitney Justice with 27 points. Brittany Justice, a double-double, 17 points and 15 rebounds in the win for the Bobcats. Parkersburg snaps a 4-year losing streak to Cabell Midland, 65-51, your final. Buchanan Upshur falls to Lincoln, 58-49. Meadowbridge over Malcolm, 39-26. Woodgrove, Virginia knocks off Martinsburg, 79-45. Hurricane, behind 25 points of freshman Mary Rogoshevsky, defeats Capital, 63-49. Clay Battelle, 66. Liberty Harrison, 32. St. Mary's, 71. Tyler Consolidated, 37. And our final score for this scoreboard update, Ritchie knocks off Wirt, 62-40.
Thank you very much, James. Once again, the phone number if you want to join us here, is we have about 20 minutes left in the program. 1-855-345-4709. Again, that's 855-345-4709. Of course, if you're watching on basketballnight.com, we've got the number up on the screen. And James, again, early in the season, you get a chance for these teams to go out and some want to kind of work their way slowly in. Woodrow Wilson, for instance, and that's a philosophy. That's a schedule where, and I'm not talking about quality of opponent. I'm just talking about they have big gaps between games. Play a game, practice several more times. Play a game, get some more practices in. And other teams, well, they'll just jump straight in. I don't know that either one is necessarily right or wrong. I think it's just dependent upon what you're more comfortable doing as a coach.
Well, and as a coach, one of the things that you want to do is obviously it's nice to get out on the court and play someone else who doesn't know the plays. You get some film to see what your team does in a live situation. It also gives you an opportunity to, as some of the coaches like to say, go over and draw something up in the dirt and see what they can do. Early on, especially in the month of December, as a coach, I always like to try different things. I don't want to show everything I have in the back pocket because you're going to need that coming late January, February, especially into tournament time. But at the same time, I've got to see what my team can do. If I have an intentions of running a 1-3-1, I've got to see that on film. I've got to get it on film. Is it going to be perfect? Is it going to work for me tonight? Maybe not. Is this type of press going to work better for that type of press? I don't know. But coaches, especially in today's day and age, they're dividing the season up into 3 sections. It's the non-conference games, which is a lot of them they call the preseason. It's almost like a scrimmage time that they get a chance to go out, try different things. Then you go into conference play, and that's when the games really start counting because that's where it's going to determine whether you get into sectionals. A lot of those regions, you have 5 teams. It's going to be 4 and 5 in that play-in game, and then obviously you want that number 1 seed so you can play the winner of the 4 and 5. And then after that, it's postseason, which is kind of the second regular season, if you will, and that's where all the chips are on the table. And especially in that sectional matchup, that first night out, there's no safety net. You have to win that night to move on, and then you get that safety net back on, depending on if you win or if you lose, of where you go and who you will play. But it's like you said, some guys like to go out and they like to get that. I guess it really looks. Do you have a veteran team? Do you have a young team? Young team, let's go out and get some wins. Let's get these guys some confidence. And the gals, let's get them ready to go. On the other side, if I've got a veteran team and I want to make a deep run, I'm going to go out, I'm going to find what I've got, I'm going to perfect it, I'm going to make sure that I've got every tool in the toolbox available at any given time. Because coming down to it, as we saw last year up in Charleston and March, sometimes you need some crazy things. Sometimes you need a break, and sometimes you need something that you haven't tried all year long. And that will be the deciding factor of whether it's a win or a loss.
I mean, you talk about some teams that early on that kind of jump out in terms of who they've played. On the boys' side, Scott opened up at home with West Side and then played at Wyoming East tonight and split those 2 games. Lost by 3 to West Side, who's very good. At least projects to be very good again this year, who was very good last year. And then Wyoming East, Scott beats Wyoming East tonight on the road in New Richmond by 6, 78-72. So Scott's tested right out of the gate. Now they turn around and go into somewhat Cardinal Conference play in terms of they play Sissonville and then a game against Grafton in the Big Ten Cardinal Conference Challenge, which I think is a really neat event to get 2 conferences from different parts of the state to be able to play each other in kind of a matchup in Charleston. And we saw some of those teams make it to Charleston a year ago, Chapmanville Regional, Bridgeport, Robert C. Byrd, they were all there. Fairmont Senior, Polka. So I mean, there were 5 teams out of those 2 conferences that were in the 8-team AA field a year ago. So they get to play each other.
And you get some coaches that like to do that. They like to try to get other conferences that they may not see. And the other side you run into is you have coaches that like to go outside the state and try to find the stiffer competition and go with it. Which one works? I say they both do. It's whatever, kind of each to their own. But it's an interesting start already to now the second weekend to high school basketball.
Well, right now we'll step aside for our final break. We'll come back and wrap up week 1 of Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia when we come back on the Fast Break Sports Network.
Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia will return in 2 minutes on the Fast Break Sports Network.
For all the scores, live, all of them in West Virginia, there's only one place to go, and it's Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Visit us online at basketballnight.com. You can find all the scores. Thanks to our affiliates tonight, and thanks for all the help. Armstrong Cable Digital Channel 204, Comcast Channel 25, no audio still. Hope to have that fixed next week. WHFI in Linside, 106.7 FM. WVOW Logan, 101.9 FM. WFGH Fort Gay, 90.7 FM. WQAZ LP Edmond, Beckley, 98.5 FM and 101.5 FM. WYAP LP in Clay, 101.7 FM. And the voice of the Thundering Herd, WMUL Huntington, 88.1 FM. Online video can be found at basketballnight.com and on rsnsports.com. A shout out to the people tweeting us tonight: Tom Hart, Kerry Dotson, Greg Blackburn, Dave Haynes, Lady V's Basketball. Hello to you out there. Thank you. Morgan, Andy Layton, Eric Atkins, Jerry Bratchford, and Evan Almighty. It's all here every Friday night. Join us 9 o'clock to midnight every Friday night. Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Thanks for being part of the Basketball Friday Night family. We're here for you.
Celebrating high school basketball around the Mountain State, you're listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia on the Fast Break Sports Network. Now, back to your hosts, James Collier, Rudy Raines, Coach Rick Marone, and Ryan Epling.
11:47 on Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia, Season 2, Week 1.
Season 2, I like that
I like
sound.
that.
I like that
Nice.
sound. Just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, I'll tell you, definitely glad to have everyone listening or watching. Ryan Epling, James Collier again with you here tonight. And big win tonight for Spring Valley's boys team as the Timberwolves pick up a 54-40 win over Lincoln County. And a young man hitting a milestone in that one, who's been around for more than 2 seasons on the hardwood, Jacob Kilgore. He gets the 1,000-point mark for his career tonight. First off, Jacob, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell me about that win tonight over Lincoln County, a ball game that a 14-point win for your team.
Well, it was a very hard-fought win. Give Lincoln County a lot of credit. They are a whole different team this year. They play solid defense, and they're very well coached. But first half, we weren't making our shots, but it came along as the game flowed. First game, jitters, but it came along.
Jacob, you had that same kind of bug that last season to where you had several games that you guys played right down to the wire, and it was just you couldn't get shots to fall early, and it turned into a loss rather than a win. How fitting is it that the first game out, you guys go through the same thing, but you find those shots, get them to fall, and it turns into a 13-point victory?
it's great to finally be able to turn those into wins, because this year we're starting 2 seniors and a junior and 2 sophomores. So it's good to get the experience for the younger guards so that they're more prepared for that later in the season.
Tell me about Jonah Mathis. We talked to Coach Maynard earlier, and he said that he was the guy that had to step up and take the point position after losing Tyler. How was it tonight for him, and how much did he rely on your senior leadership on the floor of kind of letting him know what needed to happen and how to control himself through a tight ball game at the first part of the game?
He sees the court really well and makes good passes, and I could tell when he was down a couple of times on himself, or maybe turning over or missing a shot or missing a pass or whatever. But I was there to tell him, keep your head up. This game, the pressure in this game, we're going to be facing a whole lot more pressure in the coming weeks. So take this as a practice game.
Jacob, for you, how nice is it to you get that career milestone of 1,000 points, but is it something now that you're kind of glad that it's gone, it's out of the way, and now you can just really focus on the task at hand, and that's trying to put this Timberwolves team in Charleston?
It's great to get out of the way the first game of the year. I don't have to think about it anymore, and I just play basketball.
Jacob Kilgore, congratulations both on your win tonight, which I'm sure was more important to you tonight, but also on the career milestone, which is something that you can look back on a little bit later on in life, 1,000 career points. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jacob.
That's Spring Valley High School's Jacob Kilgore. We appreciate him calling in. We still have a few moments left if you want to call in and get in here right before the end of the show tonight. 1-855-345-4709. Again, that's 1-855-345-4709. And something Jacob mentioned there, this isn't rocket science by any means, but their shots weren't falling tonight at Spring Valley early on, but something that can always be consistent is your defense. Sometimes rebounding won't always be consistent because the ball won't bounce the right way for you, but defensively, holding Lincoln County to 40 points, you're going to give yourself a chance to win any time out you hold a team to 40.
You hold a team to 40 or under 40 any night you go out, you give yourself a great opportunity, even if you're shooting poorly. And last year, that was one of the things that Spring Valley, several times, it would find itself in double-digit deficits. It had to claw itself out of those holes. And it's something in the game of basketball, if you're always having to climb uphill, it's so difficult to get over that peak because you only get one shot. If you don't get over it, then it's going to be a loss. And that was something that Coach Corey Maynard talked about so many times last year, was that team just, it couldn't find its way over the hump. But hearing that it started like it did tonight and didn't find the shots, they started falling late. But again, it goes back to the old analogy, defense wins championships. And you have to be able to hold your opponent when you're not making your shots at the same time of not making shots. And for every team around the state, that's when we get into Charleston, that's what you see. You see the defenses step up, the full court presses, the forcing the turnovers, and then the other side of that, points off turnovers. That becomes the difference in the ball games.
So one thing, if you're familiar with our program, if you're not, welcome in. We'll guide you along as we go too. But one thing that we always try to do with our show is to be interactive. And on our website, basketballnight.com, we try to get a poll question up every week. We usually ask it right about the end of the show. That way it can sit there for the entire week. Sometimes it's an easier question than others, and something's obviously going to come up early in the show. We can talk about and get it on the website early, but most of the time we wait till late in the show to do it. And I'm going to put Braxton Crisp, who's behind the scenes, on the spot. Braxton, do you have a poll question ready to go this week?
I think what we're going to go with is, what is more beneficial to a team in the long run? Is it to have a strong schedule at the beginning of the season, battle tested early, and weather that storm, you can kind of cruise in the Charleston, or play a lot of easy games at the beginning and then have to fight your way in the Charleston, be battle tested right there before that state tournament run? Find out which is more beneficial to a team in the long run. That's on basketballnight.com. And James, one final time tonight, let's get a check of the scoreboard.
We've got just about every score out there that we were able to get from Twitter, @hoops_roundup. as well as all of our fabulous contributors that were sending us messages, calling the show. We greatly appreciate everything that you guys do for this program. Let's go on the girls' side first, as it was Pocahontas County victorious over James Monroe 60-45. Jefferson knocks off Hampshire 52-39 in the BJM shootout. It is George Washington knocking off Belfry, Kentucky 65-41. Just receiving this from Examiner Sports, some information about this game. East Hardy rallies from down 18 to get a 39-36 win over Moorfield. You talk about playing some defense. There was some serious defense played in that, trailing by 18 and giving away with a 3-point victory.
And a Hardy County rivalry just right off the bat. Love it.
I love it. Grafton victorious over Clay Battelle 65-41. Oak Glen a trifecta win 58-55 over Cameron. It was Calhoun County over Webster County 52-36. Tug Valley by 50 over Richwood 60-10. Clay County over Scott 68-46. Willing Central Catholic knocks off Williamstown 67-55. Raleigh Bennington 15 points. Taylor DuPagla 16 in the win. The other side of the bracket on the BJM shootout, it'll be Tulsa that'll match up with George Washington after Tulsa knocks off Buffalo 57-38. St. Albans no trouble with Riverside 90-18 your final. Ripley defeats Winfield 48-26. North Marion defeats Hedgesville 87-14. It's Ravenswood over Gilmer County 62-47. Fayetteville defeats Greenbrier West 44-27. Preston over Elkins 64-37. Summers County over Chapmanville 78-60. Whitney Justice 27 points in the win. Brittany Justice chips in a double-double of 17 and 15. Parkersburg snaps a 4-year losing streak to Cabell Midland with a 65-51 victory over the Knights. It was Lincoln over Buchanan Upshur 58-49. Meadow Bridge defeats Montcalm by 13, 39-26. Woodgrove, Virginia eases past Martinsburg 79-45. Hurricane led by freshman Mary Rogaszewski. Her 25 points, 63-49 win over the Capital Cougars. It's Clay Battelle over Liberty Harrison 66-32 in the Grafton Invitational. St. Mary 71, Tyler Consolidated 37. And your final score on the girls' side of the board, Ritchie over Wirt 62-40. Let's check the scoreboard for the guys, as it was Edison Local Ohio by 4 over Weir 67-63. University by 8 over Southern Garrett 52-44. That's in the Fairmont Senior Tournament. Sherman over Montcalm 86-30. In the State Farm Tournament, it was Hedgesville easy past Fort Hill, Maryland 62-35. Bishop Donahue gets a 6-point win over Catholic Central 67-61. Ritchie County over Ravenswood 77-62. Greenbrier West falls to Independence 85-69. Fairmont Senior with the biggest upset of the evening with an 81-44 win over Washington. Huntington, no problem with Ironton 77-57 as the Highlanders knock off the Tigers. Scott defeats Wyoming East 78-72. Wahama and Trimble, Ohio has been postponed. Hayden City knocks off Valley Wetzel 61-48. Tug Valley over Richwood 60-43. Ravenswood defeats Ritchie County 77-62. In a game played yesterday, Bluefield defeated Princeton 75-38. Grafton defeats Philip Barber 47-34. It was Woodrow Wilson over Oak Hill 63-47. Polka takes care of Nitro 91-57. Briarwoods defeats Morgantown in the Gold's Gym Hoop Fest 64-41. Logan over Liberty Raleigh 68-59. Lincoln defeats Kaiser 70-58 in the Petersburg tournament. It was Independence over Greenbrier West 83-69. Mingo Central downs Herbert Hoover 65-58. Greenbrier East over Roanoke Catholic 94-53. And that's your final check of your basketballnight.com scoreboard update.
Did have a correction. We just got Morgantown's boys beat Briarwoods, Virginia 64-61. That's Coach Dave Tallman's first win as head coach of the Mohegans. Briarwoods had been 5-0. So a nice win for Morgantown out of the gate, and for Coach Dave Tallman.
Had some wrong information that was given to Twitter earlier because that was told the other direction. So apologies on that, but thank you for the correction.
And as Rick Kozlowski will tell you, you can get bad information from anywhere. And it can, and sometimes it can be a head coach.
Yeah, just
sometimes
because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's true.
It doesn't even matter if it's the head coach who tells you. Sometimes it might not be right.
Absolutely.
But quickly, James, thoughts from anything that really jumped out at you? Again, Fairmont Seniors, big win over Washington, probably the big score of the night.
Yeah, that's the biggest upset of the night. It really sends shockwaves across the state. Anything's possible. Get ready for week 2.
So thanks again to everyone for being with us here on Basketball Night in West Virginia. Thanks for all those behind the scenes. For James Collier, I'm Ryan Epling. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. Tune in next Friday for the latest high school basketball action from across the Mountain State. Visit our website at basketballnight.com to find out how you can stay connected with us throughout the week. Until next time, have a great weekend, and thank you for listening to Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia. The preceding broadcast is a presentation of the Fast Break Sports Network. Copyright 2014, all rights reserved.